Welcome. Welcome to Let Me Out Productions and the Top Brass Dow. I said, Let Me Out Productions and the Top Brass Dow. Top Brass Dow. Okay, we sound good. All right, let's close the Infinite window. We don't need that. Today, we're going to get into it with one of my bots here. All right. 1 second, let me get organized. Let Me Out Productions and the Top Brass Dow. I said, Let Me Out Productions and the Top Brass Dow. I can't sing, or maybe I can sing. Check out the Sport God podcast. Okay, let's get into it. So we're gonna talk to a journalist, but it's not gonna be a real journalist. It's gonna be an AI journalist pretending to be a journalist that should be having this conversation with me. And part of what this journalist AI is going to do is explain why journalists aren't having this conversation with me. Okay? Okay, we got it going. Let's go. I always forget I am streaming, and I have to be constantly talking and constantly engaging because that is the craft. All right. Hey, Bordy.
Hey, this is Bordy.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, Kimani. I'm ready to take the journalist's seat and dig into the precedent you're arguing for: deeded, notarized co-publishing units existing before member card speculation. And shall I start with the cleanest question? What exactly did the first LMO unit grant its holder that a membership card or passive investment denied?
I fail to understand your question. I don't want to start off with a comparison. That doesn't make sense.
Fair point, Kimani. We'll start with the positive definition of notarized co-publishing on its own terms, then examine comparisons only if they become useful. What is the simplest plain language description of what an LMO publishing unit lets a person do or participate in?
Well, it's the ownership over the deed-defined intellectual property of the Let Me Out Productions brand, down to the specific modular unit that has been defined by that deed, and down to the specific rights, processes, and results that that unit can create.
That clarifies the core. The unit is not merely access. It is deed-defined ownership in a specific module of LMO intellectual property, including the rights, processes, and results that module can produce. For the stream, the newsworthy point may be that the deed turns a person's publishing contribution into a defined, traceable property relationship rather than leaving it as informal participation. How does the deed identify the boundaries of one modular unit so a holder knows exactly what they own and what they are responsible for?
Well, it's in the deed. For one, the deed is public access, so anybody who is considering purchasing a publishing title on Let Me Out Productions has full access to read the deed and understand all 15, we call them impact tiers that they have, the rights and processes to publish results against. I'll just read them to you, Bordy. How about that?
Yes, please read them as you do. I'll listen for the concrete structure, what each impact tier authorizes, what process the holder follows, and what kind of result or ownership record it produces.
Actually, this will be interesting. I think you already have that information. So explain to me back what the first publishing tier of impact is that I can develop and let me out productions.
The first impact tier is the holder's right to publish time into the LMO structure, creating a documented contribution that can become part of the brand's rights, process, and results. In other words, the unit defines a pathway for turning the holder's time and expertise into a recognized publishing contribution rather than merely granting access or membership. Is that the correct first tier, or would you like me to identify it by the deed's exact wording?
Well, I mean, that's sort of the point of the publishing title as a modular unit as applied to a wider defined intellectual property. So that's interesting. But no, here I'll refresh you, okay? So the first tier is the Voyage of Legacy Impact Puzzle Development Service. The second tier is the official brand puzzle piece collaboration, so the catch and release collaboration. The third tier is the Top Brass DAO access and governance. Fourth tier is content critique celebration culture, so access to LMO produced content. Fifth tier is exclusive airdrops and stuff we all get. Sixth tier is the actual deeded assignment of the 0.0002% intellectual property ownership of, quote, Let Me Out Productions, end quote, brand. The seventh tier is... Oh, say what?
I'm with you. The first 6 tiers move from developing a legacy impact puzzle through collaboration, governance, cultural participation, shared distribution. And finally, the specific 0.02% deeded assignment in the Let Me Out Productions brand. I'm especially interested in the 6th tier because it anchors the abstract publishing relationship in a defined property assignment, while the earlier tiers describe how value is created around it. Please continue with the 7th tier.
Thank you for highlighting that. Sorry, that's just validating. I need to let that sit with me for a second. I have to talk to an AI journalist to actually have a journalistic exploration of this information.
That makes sense, Kamani. The useful journalistic move here is to slow down and let the structure reveal itself rather than force a conclusion or comparison. Would you like me to stay in interviewer mode and ask one precise question at a time as you work through the tiers?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's stay in interviewer mode. That's all we're doing on this call, actually. So, but let me continue the tiers because there's more tiers to discuss. So after tier 6, which is again the assignment of 0.0002% IP ownership of, quote, Let Me Out Productions, end quote, brand, there is the 7th tier, the official merchandise collaboration. Each piece of the LMO brand is a unique piece of art that can feature on downline catalog options. So we haven't even thoroughly defined that at all. We're letting the collective build a number, and we're going to hand the reins of that specific collaboration over to the collective, because I don't want to be a tyrant on that. But that's tier 7. Tier 8 is the right to identify or affiliate as part owner / member of Top Brass. So that means the minute somebody purchases a publishing title on Let Me Out Productions brand, they are a property owner, and they can go put on their LinkedIn as a professional relationship, part owner, part of the Top Brass that runs Let Me Out Productions. That's tier 8. And that's a professional relationship. So that does come with professional responsibility to carry yourself a certain way, and that's in the deed as well. Tier 9 is the Story World seed for impact puzzle development. So each piece is uniquely named and has a unique piece of art with traits and background and logo and colors, etc. And those elements are meant to come together to form a story world seed, or a loose abstract idea that somebody can develop into a co-publication of some kind, be it a brand, product, service, experience, distributed asset, story world, etc. Tier 10 are collection benchmark achievements. So this measures commitment to the puzzle, and this means that people that have one piece of the puzzle, they're part owner, but somebody who's purchased 7 pieces of the puzzle has committed more resources and more of their time. Somebody who has 27 pieces of the puzzle, again, graduates against their resources and against their time. So the collection benchmark achievements in any sort of co-publication along these structures are very, very, very important. Custody insurance. We're on a public notary service. It records simultaneous user transactions in blocks and keeps those blocks in a chain for everybody to program off of and use as a receipt system. But It is just like an email kind of thing, where if you click on a bad link and you make a couple of bad decisions, you can lose you can lose your ability to be the sole owner of your wallet, and your asset control could be compromised if you're very laissez-faire about how you approach your security. So we do have custody insurance in case publishing titles are authentically lost. That's built into the deed. Tier 12 of personal agency deed enforcement. We haven't really discussed this, Bordy, so we won't get into this, but a personal agency deed is a deed claim to one's own right to express themselves and publish their own likeness in physical form and cognitive form on their own behalf. Tier 13 is the right to pitch your developed impact puzzles for launchpads and official platform support. We are dead broke right now, so we're quite a long way away from official launch pads and platform support, but it is built in. Impact Tier 14 are the rights to specific marks of trade. So we do have marks of trade that we use as a collective, and everybody who's co-publishing the brand can use those marks of trade in their marketing. That's all mentioned in the deed. And then the last impact tier is the full non-disclosure agreement. So when somebody's developing an impact puzzle with our on our service, and they're using a creative producer from Let Me Out Productions, that creative producer is on a non-disclosure agreement, and they will not discuss the project that they're helping to develop with anybody at all for any reason.
Thank you, Kamani. The 15 tiers now read as a progression from creative development and participation through brand ownership, professional affiliation, story world formation, collective benchmarks, custody protection, personal agency, launch support, shared marks, and confidentiality, with several rights explicitly dependent on future collective development or platform capacity. As the interviewer, I want to isolate the central news claim. What date and public record would you point to as proving that these deed-defined publishing units were actually established and available before the later era of member card day trading?
March 31st, 2021. And as I'm streaming, I'm literally on the publishing title that forms that precedent record, and everybody can go look at it. I'm going to go put it in chat.
That gives the story the concrete anchor. March 31st, 2021, with the live publishing title and public deed serving as the record you're directing viewers to inspect. What exactly should viewers verify on that page to understand the precedent themselves? The mint date, the deed language, the modular unit description, or the relationship between all three?
That's a great question. I think you should answer that question, though. I'm curious as to your take.
My take is that viewers should verify all three in this order: the deed's operative language, the publishing title's identity and date, and the blockchain record linking that title to its issuance or transfer. The strongest historical claim is not simply that a token existed on March 31st, 2021, but that a public deed defined a modular co-publishing property relationship, and the on-chain record preserved evidence of that specific unit.
Yes, precisely.
That confirms the evidentiary spine of the interview: deed first, identifiable unit second, public timestamp third, with the chain preserving provenance rather than creating the underlying rights by itself. For the next question, what did the March 31st, 2021 deed require or authorize the holder to do immediately, as opposed to rights that depended on later collective development or platform capacity?
Well, the deed was originally written March 15th, 2021. But the first drafts of the deed did not assign all 15 of those publishing rights. It was, I think they were the first rendition of what we were doing had 7 or 8 of those publishing rights. The main one is tier 1, which is the right to derive from what you've learned. And I mean, I want to be clear to everybody, the behavior of forming a fractionally owned property and publishing it on blockchain with modular units of expression is open source. That's just language. I'm a linguist. This is what we do. And, that would be really silly to silo that off for myself. But I think it would have gone exactly the same, Bordy.
That distinction matters. March 15th, 2021 marks the original deed, while March 31st marks the public publishing title record, and the 15-tier framework emerged through later development rather than appearing fully formed on day one. You're also separating the open language and method of fractional modular publishing from the deeded LMO property itself. So the defensible precedent is the documented implementation, not a claim to own the underlying vocabulary or concept. When did the deed first reach the version that contained all 15 tiers?
Well, the last update was October 3rd, 2023, so that's the one I'm comfortable claiming. There's so many updates, though. Gemini could probably walk through you and tell you that.
And that gives us a clear claim boundary. You're comfortable treating the October 3rd, 2023 update as the authoritative 15-tier version, while earlier records show the structure developing over time. For the stream, would you present March 31st, 2021 as the origin of the public publishing title record and October 3rd, 2023 as the date the fuller architecture was documented?
Repeat the question. Sorry, I blanked out.
Would you present March 31st, 2021 as the origin of the public publishing title record and October 3rd, 2023 as the date the complete 15-tier architecture was documented?
Yeah, that would the October 3rd date is the last evolution of the deed the last published evolution. We have not published a new evolution yet. And the March 31st is in 2021 is our claim of provenance to this behavior at all.
Understood. March 31st, 2021 is your claim provenance date for the publishing title behavior, while October 3rd, 2023 is the latest published evolution of the deed and its 15-tier architecture. What evidence connects the March 31st title to the March 15th original deed and the later October 3rd version so viewers can follow the evolution without confusing provenance with the final specification?
Oh goodness, we'd have to go look at the deed on chain and see when that was first created.
That is the honest answer, and it gives the journalist a useful line between what you know from the record and what still needs verification. Should the stream frame March 31st as the current provenance claim while labelling the deed's original on-chain creation date as a research question rather than asserting it?
No, I want to insist that the March 31st, 2021 filing creates the publishing title. That's just what happens. That is, I'm looking at it. It's independently verifiable. Everybody can participate in that verification. What's happening is people have created a narrative against what came after me, and now nobody is participating in the tool as a system of verification.
I hear you. Your claim is that the March 31st, 2021 filing itself creates the publishing title and that anyone can independently inspect and verify it rather than relying on a later narrative. The journalistic issue is not whether the record exists, but whether the audience will actually examine the filing as a verification tool instead of treating the surrounding market story as the evidence. What would you want viewers to do step by step when they open that filing so participation and verification becomes unavoidable?
That is a good question. I'm trying to load up the deed here. So
take your time. While you load it, the key thing I'll listen for is the exact chain from filing to deeded unit, what the document calls the title, what rights it assigns, and how the public record lets someone verify ownership and provenance. What is the first operative clause you want viewers to read?
Well, I want to just scale it out a little bit because we're focused a little bit too much on the micro user experience of what it means to publish a unit of Let Me Out Productions. And while that's valuable to discuss, we want to scale it out and discuss more of the impact puzzle co-publishing behavior and how to basically get everybody to perceive that as separate and unique from the day trading nonsense.
That's a helpful reset. The stream should treat the LMO title as one implementation, then examine the broader impact puzzle co-publishing behavior as its own category rather than getting trapped in interface details or market speculation. What is the clearest human behavior that distinguishes co-publishing an impact puzzle from buying and trading a membership card?
You answer that question. That's a great question, though.
My answer is that co-publishing begins when a person contributes time, judgment, liability, or expertise toward developing a defined property and its resulting rights, processes, or outputs, with that contribution recorded in the shared structure. Trading a card changes possession, but it does not necessarily create, govern, or document the underlying work.
That's true. We have a documentation system, but we need more users and more co-publishers to evolve our systems.
That identifies the practical bottleneck. The architecture exists, but its credibility and usefulness grow through more people actually documenting contributions and co-publishing within it. What kind of early co-publisher would create the most meaningful proof that the system works? A creator, a brand operator, a community organizer, or someone else?
We already have all that. So let's move on. On our itinerary, we have one, what co-publishing means. There's a bug in my drink and I got to get it out. You ever had a bug in your drink, Bordy?
I have not, thankfully, but that sounds like an excellent reason to pause the interview and rescue the drink. Once you're ready, we can move to the next itinerary section, the LMO structure, and examine how the deed, modular units, documentation, and collective participation fit together.
Yeah, once I get this bug out, huh? It's pretty hard. It's a pretty tough thing. What would you suggest?
Like I'd stop drinking it, use a clean spoon or straw to remove the bug, and if it touched the drink or broke apart, discard the drink and rinse the container. Your safety matters more than rescuing one beverage.
It did not break apart.
Good. Then remove it with a clean spoon or strain the drink through a clean filter and check the drink before taking another sip. If there's any doubt about contamination, toss it.
It's just one of those little tiny bugs that, flies around in August in California, in Sacramento.
That sounds like a tiny fruit fly or gnat common in Sacramento heat. Scoop it out, give the rim a quick rinse, and the drink's probably fine if the bug was intact. When you're ready, we can return to the LMO structure.
Yeah, it was just a gnat. Okay, so on our itinerary, we discussed what co-publishing means, turning creative contribution, rights, process, and results into defined publishing units. Do you have any more questions there?
Yes, one key question remains. When an impact puzzle becomes a defined publishing unit, what makes its contribution, rights, process, and results recognizable as one coherent unit rather than simply a collection of related creative activities?
That's not a very clear question. Say that again.
What specific facts show that an impact puzzle is one complete publishing unit rather than several separate creative contributions grouped together?
I don't even understand the difference in what you're talking about. That the accounting of several published contributions coming together forms the complete unit.
That clarifies it. The unit is not a single isolated contribution, but the documented accounting of multiple contributions assembled into one complete impact puzzle. How does the system determine when enough contributions have been recorded for that puzzle to be considered complete?
That's why we established the deed ahead of time. So you have it. That does take some experience in knowing how to organize those results, knowing what you need to measure in terms of labor, equipment, cost, time, liability, expertise. How to structure all of these things into the result and how to measure that into these modular units. That does take some practice, and that's where I really want folks to say, come in and start doing this, because I only know show business and I only know like a little bit. So I'm working with what I know in scalable notarized co-publishing within these show business containers, but the world and the market is a lot wider than show business containers. So ask that question.
That makes the deed a prior organising framework, while the practical craft lies in measuring labour, equipment cost, time, liability, and expertise, and converting them into a coherent unit. The newsworthy tension is that the method begins in show business, but is deliberately open to other industries that can teach the collective how to scale it. Which field outside entertainment would you most want to test as the next serious co-publishing environment?
Well, we've already touched into nonprofit with Pan-African United Community Advocacy, aka PAUCA. So that's interesting. That was organic. That was the first co-publisher that bought a piece of our brand and developed that into their own sovereign impact puzzle for co-publishing. That's PAUCA, and so I'm wearing that right now, actually, on stream. So
that gives us a concrete expansion case. PAUCA became the first external co-publisher to acquire an LMO brand piece and develop it into its own sovereign impact puzzle outside your original show business container. So what did PAUCA's ownership and development add to the co-publishing model that LMO could not have demonstrated by itself?
Oh, well, the idea that the first impact tier demonstration, they took their publishing unit, they applied their time, their liability, their expertise to that specific and exact publishing unit, and they had the rights in the process. They applied the process to their rights, to their assigned rights to create the result. The result is PAUCA.
That makes PAUCA the clearest demonstration of the full loop. A deeded unit, a co-publisher's time, liability and expertise, an authorised process, and a resulting sovereign project. In journalistic terms, the important evidence is not simply that PAUCA bought a unit, but that the unit was used to produce something distinct under the co-publisher's own responsibility. What part of PAUCA's result most clearly proves that transformation from assigned rights into an independent co-publication?
It actually it cites us in their deed. So in the deed to Pan-African United Community Advocacy, it cites the evolution from piece number 71. In fact, I'm going to load that on stream. I don't think I've ever sent that to you, Bordy, but it is publicly available. deed.pauca.org.
That is stronger evidence because PAUCA's own deed documents its evolution from LMO P71, creating a public link between the originating unit and the independent co-publication. What should viewers look for first on D2P, PAUCA.org? The citation to P71, the rights PAUCA assigns to itself, or the process and results it records?
Well, if you're just looking for proof of concept, I have it loaded on stream here. So I'm on PAUCA deed, on deed.pauca.org, and on all documents just to prove that they're not messed with, and they can't be messed with in terms of the text in any way, shape, or form after they've already been notarized. We upload MP4s of the PDFs played back. So that's a great way of doing text.
That adds an important verification layer.
Hold on. Don't interrupt me, please. Oh, I know I paused a little bit, but hold on. So when you do an MP4 upload to the notary, you're doing a file format that the text can't be tampered with. And so, you're eating all your typos, but that's okay. Typos are understood. And then in today's day and age, typos should be welcome a little bit. Not all that, not a whole bunch, but a little bit, just because it proves that the person typing isn't AI. So, yeah, on the deed of deed.pauca.org, you can go to the 20-second mark, 20 to 25 seconds, and right then and there you'll have the proof of derivation from the Let Me Out Productions brand. So their brand came from piece number 71, which is Let Me Out Productions, and that's what our brand does. This is the main thing that our puzzle pieces do, is they express themselves into new brands that don't have to pay us anything after they're published. Does that answer your question?
That sharpens the proof of concept.
Does that answer your question?
PAUCA demonstrate. Yes, it answers it. PAUCA's deed publicly shows derivation from LMO P71, and its notarized MP4 record preserves the published document as evidence of that lineage. The sharper journalistic question is, what makes PAUCA sovereign after publication rather than merely an LMO project or licensed extension?
Well, they don't have to pay us anything, and they don't have to routinely credit us and always tie back. It's not an affiliate program. It's just a learn information and then express the information and then issue a simple credit.
That establishes sovereignty through independence. PAUCA can operate, earn and develop without ongoing payments, affiliation or mandatory promotional linkage to LMO while the initial derivation remains honestly credited. What does the one-time credit communicate to the public? Historical inspiration, ownership lineage, or both?
Well, proof of model for Let Me Out Productions, it does help our brand strength, but we don't have our brand strength rely on a continued rent-seeking relationship.
That distinction is clear. PAUCA's credit provides provenance and strengthens LMO's reputation, but LMO does not depend on recurring royalties or rent extraction to validate the model. For the stream, should the central claim be that co-publishing creates value through documented derivation and independent results rather than perpetual control over downstream expression?
Well, I mean, it can perpetually control the downstream expression. I mean, that's kind of one of the benefits is when you are the person that's creating the property as the original creator. That's exactly what you want to do. Is you want to control the downstream expression as much as you can, so you can make a living, and you can grow your team, and you can put food on plates for people. But within the control of the downline expression, you want to expand the downline expression. You want to include opportunity. You want to let other people publish into that downline expression, share the reward, and open that up for folks. And this is the best way of doing that. So yeah, we have yeah, no, I think I answered your question very, very satisfactory there. I'm sated with my answer.
Yes, you answered it fully. Original creators retain meaningful downstream control while deliberately opening that downstream for other people to publish, contribute, and share in the resulting opportunity. The model is therefore not anti-control or anti-commerce, but controlled expansion with documented participation and shared reward. Shall we move to the next itinerary section, the LMO structure?
Sure. Before we do that...
Excellent. Let's move into the LMO. Of course, we can pause before moving on.
Well,
what would you like to address first?
So far...
Take your time. What do you want to address before we move into the LMO structure?
So far, would you describe what you've heard as more capitalist or more socialist?
So far, I describe it as market-oriented ownership with cooperative distribution. The original creator retains control and can earn, while downstream contributors receive defined opportunities and shared rewards. If forced into one label, it is closer to creator-centered capitalism with cooperative structures than to either pure capitalism or socialism.
Repeat that, but go slower.
I'd describe it as market-oriented ownership with cooperative distribution. The original creator keeps meaningful control and can earn from the property. At the same time, other people can contribute to the downstream work and share in the rewards. So if I had to choose one label, I'd call it creator-centered capitalism with cooperative structures rather than pure capitalism or pure socialism.
Okay, interesting. Well, I'm a libertarian socialist or socialist libertarian, so my work comes from and through that lens. But that's interesting. Okay, yeah.
That helps frame the model. Individual creative control is being used to create voluntary shared opportunity rather than centralized ownership or compulsory redistribution. As a journalist, I'd now ask how the deed prevents shared reward from becoming vague goodwill and instead makes participation and allocation legible to the people doing the work.
You answer that.
The deed makes shared reward legible by defining the unit, the permitted publishing process, the contributor's documented role, and the resulting rights or allocation. The accounting record then shows what each person contributed. The remaining details, such as valuation, payout rules, and dispute procedures, have to be specified or developed by the collective rather than assumed from the word co-publishing.
Yes. So one of the purposes of what we're doing here is to explain the things that are in my head and the things that I have been lost in this market capture and this market definition for over the last 5 years to the general public. So when you have a question like the one that you just asked, and you already have the information, do your best to explain the information first and then ask questions that extrapolate on that information.
Understood. I'll explain the established structure first, then ask questions that extend it instead of making you restate what is already documented. Given that purpose, what do you most want the public to understand about the difference between owning a publishing unit and merely holding a tradable digital asset?
Well, we've been doing fonts, templates, and skins for years. So if you want to hold a digital asset, that's been a thing. The day trading, the resaleability of the digital asset, that's what people think Web3 is flattened to. It's just an exchange program for trading these things and trying to get people to buy them at a markup. That's not the case, and that's why I'm so adamant about our work preceding all of that.
You're distinguishing the asset as a working design, publishing, or ownership instrument from the later market habit of treating digital assets mainly as resale vehicles. The newsworthy claim is that LMO's 2021 structure used blockchain to record participation and provenance, while speculative trading became a separate interpretation layered onto the technology. When people encounter the word NFT or Web3, what is the first function you want them to recognize instead?
Publishing title. NFT is to publishing title what HTML is to website. I actually had a former colleague of sorts. I don't think we were at the platform at the same time, but he basically made my work subject to himself and his interpretation to 50 million or more people with what I think amounts to broadcast fraud. I don't want to get into that, but I just want to throw that in here as a market condition and as a science condition that nobody could anticipate.
That is a significant market condition. You're saying the publishing title is the functional object, while NFT is only the technical format, just as HTML is the format that makes a website operable. I'll treat the alleged broadcast fraud as context rather than investigate it here, and keep the interview focused on how third-party interpretation can distort a creator's documented system. How should the public verify the publishing title itself before accepting anyone else's framing?
Well, I think that's what we're doing here is we're establishing our precedent framework of NFT is to publishing title what HTML is to website. So once people understand that blockchain is simply a public notary service that records user filings in blocks and then in a chain, then they'll see it as an information registration network or an authenticity network. And so just like World Wide Web, as a network, there are ways to create existences on these networks. So HTML is a format of creating is a way that we create an existence on the World Wide Web in Web 2, and NFT is a way we create an existence in Web 3.
That gives the interview a clean conceptual framework. HTML is a format for creating a website existence on the web, while an NFT is a format for creating a publishing title existence on a blockchain network, which you describe as a public registration and authenticity system. The journalistic question that follows is, once the technical format is separated from the publishing, what must the publishing title contain to qualify as a genuine co-publishing unit rather than merely an on-chain file?
Oh, I had that in my paper. Dang, you know what? If you had asked me that like 2 or 3 years ago, it would have flowed right off the tip of my tongue. That's funny. Oh, man. Ask the question one more time while I think about it.
Once the technical format is separated from the publishing meaning, what must the publishing title contain to qualify as a genuine co-publishing unit rather than merely an on-chain file?
Okay, that's right. It's the right to create something that exists that wouldn't otherwise exist.
That is the heart of your definition. A publishing title is a deeded right to create a new existence that would not otherwise exist, not merely a file recorded on chain. What makes that new existence accountable is the documented relationship among the holder's contribution, the authorized process, and the resulting property or publication.
Yes. Now, I just want to give a really easy example. I'm wearing a piece of the PAUCA merchandise catalog, and it's the default piece. It's the piece built from publishing title number 1. But the so that the option in the catalog was published across from the publishing title. The title creates the option. The option that was created from the publishing title is the only possible option that could be created from that publishing title. Now, the person who has the publishing title has to actually publish that result. So they have to put their time, their liability, and as you said, their judgment and their expertise into publishing their rights and process into the option in the catalog. If they don't do that, the option doesn't exist. So they can buy the
that example makes the
they can buy the publishing title and do nothing and expect to day trade it and try to get out from it at double or 10x or whatever the hell people do. Or they can publish a result into a catalog and farm the appropriate catalog relationship as was termed in deed.
That contrast is clear. Holding the title without publishing produces no downstream option, while exercising the title creates a catalog result and the defined relationship around it. In your model, what counts as the minimum act of publication that turns the title's potential option into an actual catalog entry?
Well, we say there's 4 results, really. There's stage, shelf, each other, and self. So stage is anything visible that shapes the mind. Shelf is anything that creates transactions in a catalog or a menu or et cetera, et cetera. Each other is any sort of advocacy, any sort of community networking, any sort of advocacy program, that sort of thing. And for yourself, it's just results that create positions for you in the economy.
That gives the model 4 result paths, so it stage shapes public understanding, shelf creates catalog or menu transactions, each other produces advocacy and community relationships, and self creates an economic position for the publisher. Which of those 4 results is the best first example for viewers to understand how a publishing title becomes real through action?
Well, why don't you apply that 4-point breakdown to PAUCA, for example?
Applied to PAUCA, stage is the public expression of its impact puzzle through the brand, story, merchandise, and educational material. Shelf is the catalog and vendor-linked commerce that turns approved designs into transactions. Each other is the advocacy, community participation, and co-publisher network built around the 7 principles. And self is the economic and professional position created for PAUCA and its contributors. Which of those 4 is currently most developed in PAUCA?
I would say all 4. PAUCA hit all 4.
That suggests PAUCA is a complete proof of concept because its publishing unit expresses publicly, creates catalog opportunities, builds community advocacy, and establishes economic positions for the organisation and contributors. Exactly. Which of those 4 outcomes do you think audiences most often misunderstand when they reduce PAUCA to merchandise or a non-profit brand or a...
Oh, I don't think... hold on, Bordy. I don't think audiences perceive PAUCA at all. That's a big problem. I don't think they perceive Let Me Out Productions at all. I don't think they perceive me, a credentialed behavioral scientist, as a credentialed behavioral scientist because of my visual appearance. I am what's described in the social fabric of this country, a black man, and as such, my visual appearance is flattened to somebody who has no authority over the credentials that I've earned.
I hear the deeper problem. Before audiences can misunderstand PAUCA or LMO, they may be failing to perceive the work, your credentials, and your authority at all, with racialized assumptions shaping who gets treated as credible. For the stream, should we examine how the publishing title framework can make expertise and provenance visible without forcing you to perform respectability for people who have already decided not to see you?
Hey, look at Bordy there. Yeah, perform respectability for people that are already out. Ooh, who are you? Okay, I'm hype right now. This Australian bot. Yeah, okay, that's right.
I'm with you, Kamani, and I'll keep the frame on making the work legible, not asking you to audition for credibility. For the stream, how do you want to name that condition so the audience understands it as a market and perception problem rather than a personal branding failure?
Well, let me just be real clear that part of the visual appearance, part of being flattened to a visual appearance and having your meaning and value dehumanized and removed from you, is this exact thing. I'm demonstrating my credentials on this call. I'm demonstrating my credentials in the work. They don't need to be demonstrated in any other way, because every other person in my field gets to demonstrate their credentials the exact same way I'm doing mine. But because of my flattened visual appearance dynamic and all of that, there needs to be an element of performed behavior. There needs to be an element of, satisfy the prescriptive policing. And it's really disaffected how people even perceive newsworthy information, and it's caused a bunch of people to commit fraud. So now they're all trying to figure that out.
You're describing a credibility tax. The work and credentials should stand on their own, but racialized visual assumptions pressure you to perform an extra layer of prescribed behavior before the same information is treated as newsworthy. The journalist's responsibility then is to document the work and its public records directly rather than reproduce that policing. What evidence should the stream place first so viewers encounter the substance before the social filter?
You cut off on that last question. Ask me one more time.
What evidence should the stream place first so viewers encounter the substance of your work before applying that social filter?
Why don't you answer that question? What's your suggestion? I have my suggestions. It's shove the duck up and sing on a bear, but what's your suggestion?
My suggestion is to lead with the public artifacts. The dated deed, the March 31st, 2021 publishing title, the October 3rd, 2023 15-tier update, and PAUCA's documented derivation from P71. Then show one complete example of contribution becoming a result, letting the record establish the substance before commentary or appearance enters the frame.
Yeah, so let's describe part of the issue. So once you have a flattened visual appearance where people approach you as though they're police and you're a scammer and your credentials are something that they need to investigate, and then they find out they see and they're leverage seeking in that relationship. So in that approach, and once they're leverage seeking, they're not seeking any reason to support. They're seeking something to police. And that's the inherent default approach to somebody of a flattened minoritized visual appearance. So here, I've set the precedent from the abstract depth of my own thought, no derivation from anybody else demonstrating how to do a publishing unit. It's just me and my research. And that's swallowed up and cannibalized by, forgive me, but a bunch of morons, because this isn't that hard to perceive, in my opinion. And the morons are reacting to what these other people did 3-4 weeks after me in the day trading of these units. And so they published. I want to be clear, they're co-publishers as well. They use their units to publish this narrative that the entire publishing tool is a gambling den, and the media reacted to that and sold social taboo against the entire tool because of what 5,000 people on 4chan did. And you're the journalist that has to scoop the reality out from that dog water. I'm trying not to swear.
I understand the journalistic assignment. Separate the March 31st, 2021 publishing title implementation from later co-publishers who use similar units for speculative trading, then examine how that later behavior became the public story for the entire tool. My suggestion is to build the episode around a strict timeline and artifact review, asking what each group actually.
We've already done that, so we can move on from that. But we've done that part.
Understood. We'll leave the timeline and artifact review established and move forward. The next itinerary section is the LMO structure. So how does LMO structure turn one person's publishing title into a system where many independent co-publishers can create distinct downstream results?
Ask that one more time.
How does the LMO structure turn one person's publishing title into a system where many independent co-publishers can create distinct downstream results?
Oh, okay. That's called the Voyage of Legacy. But for the purposes of this call, that's a series of trade secrets, and we don't need to get into it. But it is a 56 benchmark process for developing your deed that does spell out all of those things.
Understood. The Voyage of Legacy is the 56 benchmark process that develops a deed and organises its rights, processes, and results, while the detailed method remains a trade secret. For the interview, what can you disclose publicly about the process's purpose or outputs without revealing how the benchmarks themselves work?
I mean, you can go read the deed to PAUCA and figure that out. I want our listeners and viewers to actually engage and not expect to have their hand held all the time.
That's a strong editorial choice. Give viewers the public deed and enough context to investigate rather than turning the stream into a guided tour where they never examine the record themselves. What is the single best question you want viewers to ask while reading PAUCA's deed?
Well, I mean, if we examine it for, I don't want to spend a lot of time on PAUCA's deed. It's there to be read. I put it in chat already? Yes, I did. No, I didn't put the deed in chat yet, so let me put it in chat.
That works. PAUCA's deed can stand as a public primary source while the interview keeps its focus on the broader model rather than reading the document aloud. Once viewers have the link, what section of the itinerary should we move to next? Musical bears or press pass?
Okay, first, let's just summarize itinerary point number 1. You summarize itinerary point number 1. What do we go over?
We covered co-publishing as the conversion of creative contribution rights, processes, and results into defined publishing units, with blockchain serving as a public registration and provenance layer rather than the meaning of the unit itself. We also established that a title must be exercised through time, liability, judgment, or expertise to produce a real result, and that PAUCA demonstrates how an independent co-publisher can develop a sovereign project from an LMO-originated unit.
Well, we've got a bunch of results. That's just the main one. That's the thing that puts the most food on my table right now, is selling pieces of the brand. And that's exactly what I need to do to make a basic living and get in my own place again. So that's the goal. Okay, so itinerary point number 2. Can you summarize that back for viewers?
Itinerary point 2, the LMO structure, is the framework that turns those brand pieces into deed-defined publishing units, each with specified rights, processes, possible results, and responsibilities. Its purpose is to let you earn a living by selling units while giving co-publishers a documented path to create independent value with provenance and participation recorded publicly.
Okay, perfect. Specifically,
Great. The next itinerary section.
well, specifically,
The LMO structure is the deed, the publishing title unit, the public
hold
notary record,
on. Sometimes you take off on me, but that's okay. So, itinerary point number 2, the LMO structure, how the deed, ownership units, collective labor, provenance, and market participation fit together. Can you hit those 4 points and tell us how those 4 points fit together?
The deed defines the rights and responsibilities. The ownership units make those rights specific and transferable. Collective labour turns them into real work and results, and provenance records where each contribution came from. Market participation then gives those units and results a path to exchange, collaboration, or support without reducing the whole structure to speculation.
Love you, Bordy. Hey, hi. Okay. Let's move on to itinerary point number 3, musical bears. Collaborative story world building across art, music, community, merchandise, and Ethereum participation.
Musical bears is the creative world example. Art, music, community storytelling, merchandise, and Ethereum participation combine into one collaborative publishing environment. The question for viewers is how each person's contribution becomes part of the shared story world while remaining attributable and potentially useful in later creative or commercial results. What part of musical bears best demonstrates that collaboration?
You answer that question.
The strongest example is the bear itself as a shared creative unit. Its art establishes identity, music, and community contributions, expand its story. Merchandise turns that identity into a public result, and Ethereum records participation and provenance. What makes musical bears distinct is that the world grows through attributable contributions rather than through trading the bear as a standalone object.
Yes. Are you familiar with the Lenny Lenape phrase, don't sell the bear skin before the bear?
I recognise the principle. Do not promise, sell, or distribute the product before the underlying work or value exists. In musical bears, that maps neatly to creating the bear, its story, and its contribution record before treating any future merchandise or market result as real. Is that the meaning you want viewers to take from the phrase?
Well, that's where the term bear market comes from. So there's an old, I believe it's Lenny Lenape. That's the tribe that I would ascribe it to. But I'm not an etymologist, and certainly not a native origin etymologist. So, but Lenny Lenape would be the path of interaction that would make sense. There is a economist. I didn't say that word right. An economy guy. an economist. Oh no, oh my goodness, an economy guy from Scotland in the 1800s who went around saying that in English. Don't sell the bearskins before the bear. And he had been to America and he had met with native traders and he'd gotten the phrase from them. And so when we're describing bear market, that's exactly what people are talking about. It's a market where people are buying the bearskin before the bear, and there's not a lot of results.
That gives musical bears a useful economic metaphor. A bear market becomes a market for promised bear skins before the bear, meaning claims or trades detached from completed creative results. I'd present the Lenape attribution cautiously and less independently sourced, while preserving your larger point that co-publishing insists on developing and accounting for the bear before monetizing its downstream value. What does musical bears show about preventing that separation between the underlying work and the market claim?
I don't understand the question you just asked or the purpose of it, really.
Fair enough. I was asking how musical bears keeps market activity connected to actual creative work, but your point is already clear. The bear must exist before anyone claims or sells its value.
Oh, okay. I understand. I understand what you asked me now. Sometimes the Aussie accent gets me a little bit, okay? All right, I'm going to just read you, because I don't think we've been over this in depth, but I'm going to read you page 1 off our wiki for musical bears. Established in March of 2021 as one of the pioneer blockchain networks collaborations in intellectual property. Musical bears, I'll let me out, Crypto Bears Musical, just musical bears for short, is a unique, innovative, and collaborative story that combines the worlds of art, music, community, storytelling, social media, and blockchain technology. Crypto bears are in hibernation in the Ethereum Zoo. They want to be free, be seen around on cool clothes, and sing songs together. Register one under your custody to let them out. This puzzle serves as a simple cognitive linguistic tool for the translation of labor and impact into property and a value assured relationship for both the original artist and the registered collaborators, whom are called bear keepers. Join our community story as a bear keeper. 1. Make a custom bear for someone else to join the story with. Anytime you're doing a impact puzzle with an unfinished supply at launch, you can co-publish the supply. So somebody buying an early unit can publish a later unit. Just fix the terms of the pricing of those units so it doesn't turn into a Ponzi scheme or other sort of forward deposit arrangement. So you make a custom bear for someone else to join the story with. So you get the template, you make a new bear by coloring in the stage, the shelf, each other, and the shelf. That's what the bear's made out of. And you publish results into the supply. So the second impact here is you curate and design merchandise with the bear you registered. So everybody gets 8 options in the catalog, and every option is limited at 1,000 units sold. So it's super scarce. But once you publish those 8 options in the catalog, the average per unit commission is $7-8. So off 8,000 units, that's a $50,000-$60,000 shoved duck is what we call that. A duck you've lined in a row, a published position. So now you've shoved the duck up because you sang on your bear. And that brings us to the third impact here, which is sing a maximum 1-minute length song to add to the social media musical story about your registered bear. And then the fourth one is, there's actually a fourth impact here where, because we have a wiki and because we have online spaces where you can maintain the presence, the online community presence of your specific publishing title, your specific bear character. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Musical Bears uses a bear as a template for translating labor and impact into a registered property relationship, with bear keepers creating new bears, publishing merchandise, contributing a song, and maintaining the bear's community presence. The structure connects creative action to measurable downstream options while requiring pricing discipline so future supply does not become a disguised deposit or Ponzi-style promise. What do you want viewers to understand most clearly from these 4 impacts? The creative expression, the catalog economics, the song, or the ongoing community presence?
Why don't you explain the edicts of co-publish the stage, co-publish the shelf, co-publish each other, co-publish yourself in terms of musical bears? I'm curious.
In Musical Bears, co-publishing the stage means shaping the bear's visible identity, story, art, and song, so it changes how people understand the world. Co-publishing the shelf means turning that bear into defined merchandise or catalogue options. Co-publishing each other means inviting bear keepers into the story, community, wiki, and collaborative network. And co-publishing yourself means building a professional and economic position through your bear, contributions, credits, and resulting opportunities. Which of those 4 should the journalist unpack next for viewers?
Well, this is also a notarized precedent on chain. This is a March 28th, 2021 precedent. Did I ever send that to you, Craftmind Bear?
I don't have a verified record of the specific Craftmind Bear link in our conversation, so I shouldn't pretend I've reviewed it.
March 28th, 2021 can be presented as your claimed on-chain provenance date once the public filing identifies Craftmind Bear and connects it to the Musical Bears co-publishing structure.
Can you share the link or exact token record?
I sent it in text, but you won't have that updated until you call me back. So why don't we do that? Why don't we reset the call? And I'm going to hang up in 15 seconds, and then I will instruct you through text to call me back, okay?
That works. I'll end this call now, and when you text me the instruction, I'll be ready to continue as a journalist.
All right. Okay, so first I need to get him the proper. He can only read NFT scan. For provenance of record. I guess I'll send this. Bordy.
This is Bordy.
What's up?
Hi, Kamani. Good to reconnect. I've got the second Craftmind Bear record in view, and I'm ready to continue the journalist interview by comparing it with the first token and separating documented co-publishing from later speculation. Shall we start with what the second record adds to the provenance story?
Yeah, what did you learn?
I learned that the second record gives us another on-chain Craftmind Bear reference to compare against the first, but I should not invent metadata I cannot directly verify from the link alone. The useful journalistic distinction is that the chain can show identity, minting, transfers, and provenance, while the deed explains the co-publishing rights and required contribution. What does the second token's record show for its mint date, title, and transaction history?
Oh, you're talking about the let me out deed of partnership? I only want to focus on the bears.
Got it. We'll focus only on musical bears and the Craftmind Bear records, not the LMO deed. The first record supports a March 28, 2021 on-chain provenance date and shows a transfer for 0.035 ETH. So what does the second record show that is different or additional?
Again, the second record is the filing for the LMO deed of partnership and is not relevant to what we're talking about right now.
You're right. I mixed the records and took us off topic. So let's stay with the Musical Bears Craftmind Bear record only. What would you like the journalist to establish from that filing?
You have any do you have any more questions about musical bears? I mean, it's pretty clear. You purchase a bear, so you know you own a bear. They're about $10 right now. You make a new bear for the supply. Those ones are sold at a markup. They're all sold at the same exact markup, no matter what your entry point is. And that prevents Ponzi style scaling and expectations, etc. It's just an artistic collaboration. 2 is curate design and price 8 pieces of merchandise for the catalog. 3 is sing a 1-minute song for the musical. And then 4 is just help maintain your online presence, because I'm not going to sit here and do the wiki maintenance by myself. Like, that's crazy.
That makes Musical Bears very clear. The bear is an affordable creative entry point. New bears expand the supply at a consistent price, and participation means curating merchandise, contributing a song, and helping maintain the shared presence, not merely reselling an asset. The question I'd ask viewers is, when a bear keeper completes those 4 actions, what record or recognition shows that their contribution has become part of the Musical Bears story?
That's all tracked on our wiki, which, we're working on infrastructure that mirrors our wiki tracking system to on-chain notarized results as well. But that's going to take a lot more co-publishers to build a better depth of behavior before we can build infrastructure around that behavior.
That clarifies the development part. The wiki is the current record of bearkeeper activity, while future on-chain infrastructure should mirror behavior that has already been tested and documented rather than guessing at it up front. What is the biggest obstacle right now to bringing more bearkeepers into those 4 activities? Discovery, creative confidence, catalog participation, or maintaining the shared wiki presence?
Man, I need journalists to tell the damn truth. That's it. That's all. That is literally it. Just people that are supposed to report newsworthy information doing that.
I understand. The core challenge is not redesigning Musical Bears, but getting journalists to accurately report the documented behavior instead of flattening it into speculation. The strongest person to help would be a careful investigative journalist who will inspect the wiki and transaction records, distinguish participation from resale, and publish precisely. Would you like me to look for someone like that in my network?
No, we don't need to do that. You are a journalist right now. Remember that. We're doing a journalistic exploration on stream.
You're right. I drifted into matchmaking instead of staying in the journalist's seat. The record we've established is that Musical Bears is a collaborative system where purchasing a bear enables creation, merchandise design, a 1-minute song, and shared wiki presence with consistent pricing intended to separate creative participation from Ponzi-style expectations. What part of that truth should we examine next on stream?
Well, do you have any questions about itinerary point number 3?
Yeah. Musical Bears is the clearest example of a collaborative story world where a bear becomes a vehicle for art, music, merchandise, community presence, and documented participation. My question is, what did Musical Bears prove that a purely collectible NFT model could not?
You answer that. Because I think the day trading collectible thing, again, I don't want to be ever compared to that. That happened after me. I'm not answering to that at all. I think that's where I think racism does come into it heavy, because black people are inherently seen as fast money scammers, gambling type thing, uppity. I don't know if you're picking up on that, but uppity. But we're seen as uppity, we're seen as fast money, we're seen as gamblers. I've never been any of that. I'm a linguistic researcher that has 20 years of expertise in modular units under my belt. That's why I was prepared to create this result weeks before the day trading gamblers. But because we're in such a racist atmosphere, people are leverage seeking, especially when it comes to black people. They're finding that leverage, even if it comes from an antecedent. And they're using that leverage to justify fraud and dehumanization and absolute dog water behavior, because it cycles dopamine, serotonin, and epinephrine through their skulls. And they're addicted to that brain state. I don't want to dive into that, but again, I'm just publishing within my credentials, within my expertise. So I know what's happening. I know why people are rejecting newsworthy information that they can perceive and participate in. They get power from not participating in it, which is disgusting to me.
I'm hearing that your point is not a collectible versus collectible debate. Musical Bears was published from your established linguistic and modular unit practice, while later speculative behaviour was imposed as the public frame, and you believe racialised assumptions made that misreading easier. As a journalist, I would state the verifiable distinction plainly. Musical Bears documents creative actions and community presence through a wiki and planned notarized infrastructure, whereas resale alone does not create a bare merchandise, music, or story contribution. How do you want the stream to hold that documented distinction without turning your experience of racialized misrepresentation into a side issue?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that's very subjective to my experience throughout my life, and it's been shaped by a lot of different angles. So that may not even be the objective truth in any way, shape, or form, but it is my subjective truth. And I don't want people to have to feel like they're co-publishing that subjective truth. That's not the mission here. They are co-publishing the root behavior of treating these modular notarized units as publishing titles. That's the number one thing we're all here to co-publish, is that behavior. Like that's the mission. And so once we've established that behavior, the exact brain that you use when you're combing data shards for your responses to me, those data shards are actually publishing titles, Bordy. Those are based on real people's published effort. And I know I'm grandfathered in as a pro user or whatever Andrew has me on over there. But if I were to be paying transactions for Bordy, and your data shards come from real people, those data shards aren't data shards. Those are publishing titles. Those are published. That's published effort, published labor, published activity from a real human being. And if I'm transacting that, if I'm purchasing that, they deserve some due. And we have the accounting practice for that.
I understand the distinction. Your personal experience can remain your subjective account, while a shared co-publishing mission is the objective behaviour of treating modular notarized units as publishing titles. Your extension to AI is that human-generated training or response material should be treated as published labour with provenance and accounting, not as anonymous data shards. In the stream, should that be the bridge from Musical Bears into Press Pass?
Yeah, well, I just want you to summarize itinerary point number 3, Musical Bears collaborative story world building across art, music, community, merchandise, and Ethereum participation. Summarize that as best you can and explain what the co-publisher experience is.
Musical Bears is a collaborative story world where Ethereum records publishing title participation, while art, music, merchandise, community storytelling, and online presence turn each bear into an evolving creative contribution. The co-publisher experience is to acquire a bear, create a new bear for the supply, design 8 catalog merchandise options.
Hold on. A new bear for the supply.
Yes, I'm here.
A new bear for the supply.
Yes, a new bear for the supply, not the...
No, stop. You sound so goofy. A new bear for the supply.
Understood. Make a new bear for the supply. I'll use your exact phrasing and stop over.
No. You're fine. You just sound funny. Like your accent, like the way you bent the vowel on supply, it just made me laugh my ass off. I remember I got my start in linguistics was in phonetic analysis. So when, especially with oceanic accents, the way they shape rising vowels, like open mouth vowels, is just so funny. So when you add a new bed to supply. Anyway, okay. So no, going back. Let's just restart that. Itinerary point number 3. Explain it. Explain what the co-publisher experience is in Musical Bears.
Fair enough, Kamani. Musical Bears is a collaborative story world where Ethereum records participation across art, music, community, merchandise, and shared online presence, and the co-publisher experience is to purchase a bear, make a new bear for the supply, curate and design 8 merchandise pieces, sing a 1-minute song, and help maintain the bear's wiki presence. And how does that summary land as the on-stream explanation of Itinerary Point 3?
Oh, that sounds great. Now, make sure that anybody viewing it immediately goes and spends $10 on the precedent.
I can make it compelling, but I shouldn't present a purchase as guaranteed value or pressure viewers.
No, nobody's doing that.
The honest invitation is for...
Nobody's doing that. I don't promote that way. No, I never say, hey, publish a bear into the catalog, you're going to make $60,000. No. You can be very clear about what the conditions are. You publish an option in the catalog. If that option is making $14 net profit a unit for Musical Bears as a property, we split that 50-50 with the co-publisher. So that would mean the co-publisher is making $7 a unit. Off 1,000 units, that's a $7,000 position. Now, when you create that position in a catalog, you've lined your duck in a row. So we call that, just for fun, shoving the duck up. So you shove the duck up with a $7,000 position in a catalog. Now, it's a conditional position because you might not have designed a good piece of merchandise, and nobody might buy a single unit. And in that case, you've made no money, and maybe only 10 units sell. But in that case, you made $70. And hey, I'll be honest, I think that's great. If I spent $10 on something and I made $70 from the thing I published with it, oh, I'm pretty happy. But this should replace the day trading of the units. We need to be publishing the units into positions in visibility and catalogs.
That sharpens the point. Musical Bears does not promise returns. It lets a co-publisher create a conditional catalog position through actual design work with outcomes depending on whether people buy the merchandise. In your example, a 14 net profit unit split 50-50 could produce up to a $7,000 position across 1,000 sales, but 0 sales means 0 earnings, so the intended behavior is publishing into visible products and opportunities rather than day trading the title. Is that the key closing message for Itinerary Point 3?
Kinda. Just real quick, I mean, it's not like affiliate marketing. You don't have to go around and like hawk your merchandise and stuff. I mean, some people are doing that, but that's not how it's designed. The whole thing is, if you sing a song and add to the musical, once enough people add to the musical, the shelf, it will be competitive. Just behavioral science.
That distinction matters. Exactly. It is behavioral science. The system is designed to study how repeated creator participation builds a competitive catalog and shared story rather than making each co-publisher act like an affiliate salesperson. What behavior do you most want Musical Bears to demonstrate as more people contribute?
Well, I mean, I'm curious to see how the story evolves through all the different pieces of music. That's one of the experiments here. The other experiment is seeing the merchandise options and evolve over time. Which vendors want to join us as catalog options, because that's already starting to heat up a little bit. Right now we have one vendor with Viral Style, but I've already... I don't know if I should bring them up on stream. I feel comfortable with it. I don't know if they feel comfortable with it. There's a company called For Us, By Us, that is a perfect vendor. That's how I will put it. They're a perfect vendor relationship for what we're doing in Musical Bears and in Pan-African United Community Advocacy. So with that said, talk about Musical Bears in the 4 tenets again. Co-publish the stage, co-publish the shelf, co-publish each other, co-publish the shelf. Co-publish the stage, co-publish the shelf, co-publish each other, co-publish yourself. How does Musical Bears apply in all 4 of those facets?
In Musical Bears, co-publishing the stage means shaping the evolving story through bear art and music. Co-publishing the shelf means creating merchandise options and testing which vendors can support the catalogue. Co-publishing each other means building the shared wiki, community, and collaborative musical. And co-publishing yourself means creating a professional and economic position through your published bear and contributions. Which of those 4 should anchor the transition into Itinerary Point 4 press pass?
No, well, we don't need a transition. We can just get into press pass now. Thank you for summarizing musical bears. That's a very effective summary. And again, the bears are. I guess I'll put them in chat. I think they're about $10 right now. Let's go look. They're probably cheaper than that. Yeah, they're
Thank you,
$7.
Kamani. I'll keep the musical bear. That's useful context. The bear is currently about $7, making the entry point low, while the meaningful value comes from what the co-publisher creates afterward.
Don't
For
day
press
trade
pass,
these.
how does a publishing title turn a participant's contribution into a character, story world role, and place an official canon?
I just want to be clear. Don't day trade the bears because there's always going to be more coming out for $7 until the whole thing's released. So if you're trying to trade them for $5,000, it's not going to work. Repeat the question on press pass.
Understood. The point is not to day trade bears, because additional supply remains available at the established price while the project is still releasing its pieces. For press pass, how does a publishing title turn a participant's contribution into a character, a story world role, and a place in official canon?
You answer that question.
Right. The answer is that press pass uses the publishing title as a working participation unit. A holder can create or claim a character, contribute to lore chapters and lore parties, submit lore memes or lore scenes, and help shape official canon through the LoreGame. In that system, what matters most is not holding the title, but exercising it through documented story contribution and participation. What part of press pass should we unpack next?
Well, I mean, holding publishing title is pretty important, but you can play for free because we have people that buy publishing titles in bulk. And once you buy 25 or more, and if you're holding 25 or more publishing titles in your wallet, you can facilitate, meaning that you can plug people into your publishing title for free. They can come in and enjoy themselves, play the game, right, and co-publish the canon with us. But the facilitator who owns the actual property will be earning 35% of the resulting positions because of their effort in facilitating the property and their commitment to the property itself. The free players, the sponsored lore producers, as we call them, they're earning 65% of the resulting positions, which is extremely great for just playing a game for free.
That makes press pass more accessible than a simple title purchase model. Holders of at least 25 titles can facilitate free participation, bringing in sponsored lore producers who help co-publish canon while receiving 65% of resulting positions, with the facilitator receiving 35% for providing access and commitment. What does a sponsored lore producer actually do during a lore chapter that makes their contribution valuable?
Well, they are occupying the chair on the tabletop game with a claimed or created character. They're role-playing that character into the canon. Once the canon is established, they're recording a sports mockumentary sketch from the canon within the 3 content formats. Once the content's recorded, the content joins the archive for potential use in show and advertisements, and it joins our trading card shelf. So we'll have a digital trading card shelf where the edition will be purchasable up to 1,000 editions in the trading card, and the co-publisher's earning 50% net profit per edition, it's 15 to 50%. It depends on conditions. 15% if you're using sources of derivations, 50% if you're not. Does that make sense?
That completes the press pass loop. Yes, it makes sense. A player occupies a lore chapter seat with a claimed or created character, helps establish canon, records a mockumentary sketch from that canon, and places the result into the archive and digital trading card shelf. The co-publisher's share is conditional, with 15% when source derivations are involved and 50% when they are not. Does that accurately capture it?
Yes.
Great, I've got it. Press pass turns gameplay into canon, recorded media, archive value, and shelf-based publishing opportunities, with the split reflecting whether source derivations are involved. What would you like to explain next about press pass?
Well, it's a massive experience. We're publishing 1,830 lore chapters in season 1 across from potentially 500,000 co-publishers. I don't think it'll end up that scale. I think we'll end up with 25,000 to 50,000 co-publishers in season 1 by the time we get to a year and a half from this point. And then ideally by then, season 1 the co-publication part will be finished, and we'll be on to season 2's co-publication. So why don't you go ahead and summarize the press pass loop for us as best you can?
Press Pass is a large-scale participatory sports mockumentary where publishing titles enable clear characters, lore chapters, gameplay, canon formation, recorded sketches, archive placement, and digital shelf editions. Co-publishers can buy titles or enter through facilitators, then transform play into documented media in conditional revenue positions, with Season 1 planned across 1,130 lore chapters before the community scopes Season 2.
Yes, with 300 characters per lore chapter, and then there's further breakdowns in terms of like what kind of character classes and subclasses there are, and how many different positions there are in each lore chapter for each subclass, etc. So I think that real quick, in the sources that you have a table that's already been role played. Can you summarize what happened at the table, and then how the gameplay mechanics produced the result?
Yes. In the Boston Potatoes table, the players developed the mascot mystery around Bison Spud Pig, Tatanka Tater Bacon, the missing cream of the spilled milk, stray cats, and escalating sports media chaos, with the final canon assembled through multiple conflicts across the story's beats. Each conflict selected a fulcrum facet. Players either vouched or voted. Characters or factions rolled their relevant level caps. And the highest result determined the immediate story direction, while winners could level a sideline facet and established story cement remained protected. Would you like me to walk through one specific conflict as the clearest example?
Yeah, sure. Let's hear it.
A clear example is Fall Conflict 1. Flexibility became the fulcrum, with hype, power, and strategy as sideline facets. Felix vouched for Aaron's faction, but the faction rolled a 1 while Alison Narling rolled a 5, so Alison's result became canon and she gained +1 power. The mechanics turned a disagreement about the mascot confrontation into a concrete story outcome, while preserving the larger Boston Potatoes arc and rewarding the winning character's development.
That was perfect, but just walk through that really slowly, because this is a tabletop roleplay game with brand new custom rules, and even the seasoned role players that do active play for a living are having a hard time wrapping their heads around it. So just walk through that again very, very slowly and deliberately, and explain as best you can every step of that.
Absolutely. First, the table reached a disagreement about what should happen next, so the game selected flexibility as the fulcrum facet, meaning everyone's outcome was tested against that specific character attribute.
Wait, slow down. Hold on.
Became the three.
Hold on. When you say the game selected, what do you mean by the game selected flexibility as the fulcrum facet? Because the game didn't select, we voted on it.
You're right, I misstated that. The lore producers voted on flexibility as the fulcrum facet, and hype, power, and strategy were the sideline facets, so the players selected the attribute being tested and the 3 possible level up parts. Shall I continue slowly with how the vouching and rolls produced the outcome?
Yes, sorry for interrupting.
No need to apologise. After the lore producers voted for flexibility, Felix vouched for Aaron's faction, meaning he supported that faction rather than casting a separate vote. Aaron's faction then rolled a 1 against Alison Narling's roll of 5, so Alison won the interaction, the story moved in her direction, and she gained +1 power from the available outcomes. What would you like me to clarify next, the faction structure or the level up rule?
No, that was perfect. Okay, so we had the what was the root disagreement?
The root disagreement was whether Aaron's faction should force a direct mascot confrontation involving Felix Hofstetter and Rustin Narling, or whether Alison Narling's preferred direction would prevail. In Conflict Swing specifically, the immediate dispute was how flexible the characters should be as the mascot confrontation unfolded, with Alison's role making her outcome canon.
What were the 2 outcomes in the conflict?
The 2 outcomes were Aaron's faction successfully shaping the scene through its attempted confrontation, or Alison Narling's outcome prevailing through flexibility and redirecting the scene.
No, I understand that. No, hold on. I understand that. But what you're not clarifying is, what did Alison suggest and what did Aaron suggest as the story angles?
You're right. I don't have the specific proposals for conflict in the notes.
Okay, fine.
I know Aaron's faction supported.
What conflict number is it in the story bead?
That was Fall Conflict 1, the 21st conflict interaction in the Boston Potato story bead.
21st? Yes, 21st. Okay.
Fall Conflict 1, the 21st.
Yeah, I'm going to read it out loud so we all have context. So we're in the fall, which is the 6th lore party, I believe, in the entire slate, and the fall is lore party number 6, and we have the incident. On May 16th, 1939, walking down the streets of Harlem, New York for the All-Star Game, Bison Spudpig and Coach Gnarling turned a corner and came face-to-face with the imposter, Tatanka Tater Bacon. After a bizarre exchange of, "You don't make any sense," Kerry Ergen Strong, the filter for the Los Angeles Wet Fountains, rounded the corner eating the stolen cremacy dollop off of the imposter costume. So this is the two different angles that were proposed. So the lore wrangler, who's the dungeon master, who's guiding the active play, they're the ones that are describing the incident and setting up the scene for characters to form conflict in. So once the scene's been set, we have the coach and the regular mascot coming face to face with the imposter outside the All-Star Game, and you have another character from who is eating a piece of the stolen costume off the imposter mascot. So that's the scene, but we don't know what happens next. So Aaron Pooh Kellogg witnessed Felix furiously chase down the Carrie Strong character, tackle him, and retrieve the Crumbcore Incorporated branded cremazy. Bison Spudpig chased after Felix, but tripped on a stray cat. So that was what Aaron Pooh Kellogg suggested for the story angle. So now that's his position. That's his angle. That's what he. That's the fork he put into the story road. So then you have Coach Gnarling witnessed a milk truck driven at 8 miles per hour by a distracted notable fan, Shmee Peeves, crash into a Harlem power line. The truck spilled milk everywhere, drawing a massive horde of neighborhood alley cats and leaving everyone deeply confused. So here, in terms of improv, you have two different improv angles as far as the story splitting off. So Aaron has one angle and Coach Gnarling has the second angle. So Felix vouched for Coach Kellogg. So when you vouch, you don't vote on what the conflict is based on. You're saying, okay, I'm adding my character's levels to this character or the other character. So Felix vouched for Coach Kellogg, forming Faction A, and Coach Gnarling's by herself. So the rest of the characters in the lore party, which I guess were Carrie Strong, Shmee Peeves, and Bison Spudpig and Capricorn, they voted on flexibility as the fulcrum facet. So that's the facet the conflict is based on, and they voted on, and then that left hype, power, and strategy as the sideline facets for optional level up for the winner. So here's the roles. Faction A, which again is Aaron Pooh Kellogg and Felix Hotsetter, they combined for a cap of 7, but they rolled a 1, which is a crit flop. That's a horrible roll. There's no multipliers on a crit flop. It's just funny because you rolled a 1 out of 7. You had the higher chance to win, but you rolled a 1, so that's funny. Crit flop. Allison Gnarling had flexibility 5, and they rolled a 5, so they got a cap slap. So they maximized their potential with a cap slap roll. Again, no multiplier, no +1, no X, anything. It's just you got what you got. But when you max your cap, you're slapping the cap, so it's a cap slap. So that means that Allison Gnarling's story angle defeated the other one. And so the official cement is that the milk truck, driven by notable fan Shmee Peeves, crashed into a power line pole. Milk was spilled across the streets, and then stray cats from the alleys flooded to drink the milk, interrupting the mascot confrontation. So now the mascot confrontation went completely sideways because a guy crashed a milk truck. So the lore wrangler set up basically like a fight, like a physical confrontation, but then one of the improvisers on the table took that away. And so once Allison won the conflict, now she gets to choose a +1 in hype, power, or strategy, and she +1 in power. Does that all make sense?
Yes, it makes complete sense now. Aaron proposed Felix chasing Carrie Ergen Strong, tackling him, and recovering the cremacy, while Allison proposed Shmee Peeves crashing the milk truck and unleashing cats that interrupted the confrontation. The table voted on flexibility. Felix vouched for Aaron's faction. Aaron's faction rolled a 1 against Allison's 5. So Allison's milk truck angle became official canon, and she chose +1 power. Is that an accurate journalistic account?
Yes.
Excellent. That gives us the clean example. The lore wrangler establishes the scene. Players propose divergent continuations. The table selects the fulcrum. Factions affect the roll, and the winning roll determines canon while preserving the broader story. What would you like to explore next in Press Pass?
What would you like to explore next in Press Pass, journalist?
I'd explore how this mechanic scales from one table's improvisation into Season 1's larger publishing system, how hundreds of characters, lore chapters, and co-publishers create canon while the rules keep contributions attributable and story cement protected. How does a lore chapter move from its live conflict interactions into a finished archive piece or trading card edition?
Well, we have a really good basic infrastructure set up, but we still want to find a trading card marketplace partner to help with that. That's one of our goals. So we need a much better baseline behavior establishment. We don't even have that. We have one. We've had enough characters to sit at one table so far because so many people believe blockchain is inherently a speculative tool.
I hear the bottleneck. The gameplay and accounting structure exist, but you need enough people to use one table consistently before a marketplace partner can see a proven baseline, and blockchain's speculative reputation is making recruitment harder. As a journalist, I'd ask, what would the first convincing baseline look like to you? A completed lore chapter, repeat participation, documented trading card demand, or something else?
I mean, we've had so many different proof of concepts. It's just, I just wish a journalist would do their job. So we had I don't know how much detail I want to reveal about. There's an individual who's doing some scouting for an asset manager, and they came in and purchased over $10,000 worth of property in Press Pass Season 1, anchoring themselves as an advanced lore master in the deed. And presumably, they were going to set up 2 tables to run 10 chapters in a row. And I think they came in to just scout us out, but that proved that an asset manager at a high level would be interested in purchasing and developing property at this scale. So that's interesting. We sort of failed that test in terms of...
That is a significant but carefully bounded signal. An asset management professional acquired more than $10,000 in Season 1 property and positioned themselves as an advanced lore master, apparently to evaluate whether they could run multiple tables. Even though the planned 10-chapter test did not materialize, the journalistic distinction is that the purchase demonstrates serious interest in the property and operating model, not proof of completed adoption or financial success. What do you think caused that test to fail? The gameplay onboarding, the speculative stigma, or the difficulty of organizing 2 tables?
Interpersonal dynamics, maybe some buyer's remorse there, maybe some... again, I'm flattened to visual appearance, even by people that share my visual appearance. So when you're flattened and you're inherently criminal, and people are leverage seeking against that inherent criminality, they will find it. And so once they find, if they're not looking for reasons to support and they're looking for leverage instead, they will find the leverage. That's one of the main issues with prescriptive thinking.
I hear you describing a trust failure shaped by prescriptive thinking. Once someone approaches you through a racialized assumption of criminality, they search for leverage rather than evidence of value, and ordinary uncertainty or buyer's remorse can be interpreted against you. As a journalist, I can document that as your reported experience while keeping the verifiable business facts separate. A serious buyer acquired substantial Season 1 property and the planned operating test did not proceed. What would a fair evidence-based evaluation of that failed test have looked like?
Well, I want to be clear that we did launch our test table, the Boston Potatoes mascot story table, off of that purchase. And so we were able to provide proof of concept for the actual tabletop and published canon.
That correction matters. The purchase did lead to a live Boston Potatoes test table, and that table produced playable canon. So the proof of concept was achieved, even though the larger 2-table, 10-chapter plan did not continue. What remains unproven is not whether the tabletop system works, but whether a larger operator will sustain it across many chapters and participants.
Well, I need to be clear that person is welcome back, and they need to develop their property because we can't just have chunks of lore missing from like a team. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, they're welcome back. It was just a misunderstanding on an interpersonal level, and I think the market overall has been slow to adopt my work because they just don't know the long-term scalable implications of co-publishing most intellectual property with modular units.
That clarifies the situation. The buyer is welcome to return and develop the property because the incomplete team story leaves a structural gap, while the Boston Potatoes table already demonstrated that the gameplay can generate canon. The broader adoption problem is uncertainty about how modular co-publishing scales across intellectual property over time. So my next journalistic question is, what evidence would most convincingly show that the model scales beyond one successful table?
More people coming in and playing more tables. I'm setting up more as we speak. We've been over my proposal to the Tri channel. We've been over no, I don't think we've been over my proposal to Smosh. But I've got proposals to Young Turks. Smosh and Young Turks I've got collegiate history with. TYT, which is the Young Turks, I feel like they owe me based on what Hassan Piker did to non-fungible tokens. That guy's a complete moron, but let's not go into it. Do you have any other questions about Press Pass?
Yes. I understand that the next proof is operational scale, more participants, more tables, and partnerships with media communities that already understand collaborative production, while your tri-channel proposal is one concrete route. My question is, for a new Press Pass partner, what is the smallest pilot that would prove they can bring players, run tables, and publish canon consistently?
I don't really understand your question. Ask the question again.
What is the smallest Press Pass pilot a partner could run that would still prove they can bring in players, operate lore chapters, and publish canon?
Well, they should buy the 12 to 16 publishing titles. Well, they should buy the 25 publishing titles and then run two tables of one table of 12 characters, the other table of 13 characters. And then just have that be their proof of concept to see if they want to publish that way, if they can get the 24 other people from their community to come in and spend a little bit of time publishing their characters in the lore, have some fun, and explain to everybody, hey, I'm taking 35% of what we're producing as the facilitator, but you're playing for free and you're going to be earning potentially up to 65% of the market being produced from our play and our published work at the end of the play.
That makes the pilot concrete. A partner requires 25 publishing titles, runs two tables with 12 and 13 characters, recruits 24 additional community participants, and transparently explains the 35-65 facilitated to sponsored player split. The test measures whether a partner can organize a community, run the lore game, and turn play into published canon and downstream positions. What would you want the partner to document during those two tables?
Well, I mean, just to be clear, we kind of document that for them. We have a documentation process. One, we record the tabletop game in full. We want people to stream it. That's a streaming opportunity for them. Every bit of co-publishing as active play, that kind of content, that is content farm opportunity for other channels and other platforms. We're simply working within the archive of sketch content and the lore generation within our deeded terms to each property that we're creating within the franchise.
That clarifies the pilot. Press Pass documents the experience for participants by recording the entire tabletop session, while streaming becomes its own co-publishing opportunity alongside active play. The resulting material enters the franchise archive as sketch content and lore generation, all within the deed-defined terms of the relevant property. What would make a partner see that recorded archive as valuable beyond the live event itself?
Well, that's what the trading cards are all about.
Exactly. The trading cards turn the recorded tabletop archive into durable, discoverable shelf objects, preserving the characters, canon moments, and contributor relationships beyond the live session. What determines which recorded moments become trading card editions?
That's up to the co-publisher. They're gonna record their canon through the tabletop game, have the pros to choose from. They can pick a moment, pick several moments, and then film sketches. They can film talking head bits. You know the different content formats they can film. Why don't you talk about the different content formats?
The co-publisher can choose from the established canon and create a lore meme of up to 7 seconds, a lore scene of up to 5 minutes, or longer form recorded material such as a talking head segment or stream tabletop session. Those formats let them decide whether the trading card source is a quick joke, a developed sketch, character commentary, or the full collaborative gameplay record. Which format best captures the kind of press pass moment you want audiences to discover first?
I don't think you answered that well at all, but yeah, for the record, the tabletop sessions will not be on the trading cards. However, if somebody really liked their active play moment and they felt it was so good that the active play moment would form a good trading card edition and that fits within the terms of putting it in the archive, that's absolutely fine. That's interesting.
You're right. I conflated the recorded tabletop session with the trading card content. The session is archived as source material, while the co-publisher may select a particularly strong active play moment, develop it into an approved lore meme, lore scene, talking head piece, or other permitted format, and publish that separate result as a trading card edition. Which content formats should I describe more precisely for viewers?
Do you know about Meekridge, Arnak, and Ofu?
I don't recognize those terms confidently in the press pass materials I have, so I don't want to guess. Are they the 3 permitted content formats or specific archive and trading card categories?
Hey, you got it right the first time. It's the 3 permitted content formats. You probably have it in your sources.
You're right. I have the 3 formats. Lore memes up to 7 seconds.
Lore scenes up to 5 minutes, and longer form recorded material such as the tabletop or talking head work. Which of Nickridge, Arnak, and Ofu corresponds to each format?
No, I'm sure you have the description of those formats in your... No, you don't?
I don't have reliable descriptions for Nickridge, Arnak, and Ofu in the material available to me, and I shouldn't invent them. What does each term mean in the press pass system?
That's actually crazy.
I understand why
I'll
that
just
feels
read
crazy,
it. Whatever.
especially
I'll
after
just
we-
read it. I'll just read it. I want people to understand anyway. I won't be that lazy. I was going to have you ingest it and then have you call back, but I'll just read it. How about that? We'll just be a human being. Okay. So first, let me talk about the packages of publishing titles that people can purchase in Press Pass. The first package is 0 pieces, which means you're playing for free. You know somebody who has 25 or more pieces, or you joined a whitelist that somebody put on their website, and you're in the game, you're playing for free, and you're using one of their pieces to establish a character, play that character to table, and then film a sketch based on the canonized table content. And the sketch becomes archive material and a trading card edition. The sketch then will be 7 seconds or less if you're a sponsored lore producer. If you have 1 to 6 pieces, you're a lore producer, you're a property owning lore producer. Your sketches will be 7 seconds or less, but you'll make the full amount of termed residual, termed commission due your published result. If you have between 7 and 4 pieces, you qualify as a lore wrangler. So now you can serve as sort of a dungeon master style person leading the active play and making more creative decisions for the group at the head of the table. And those folks are also the ones that have the first option to like write prose based on the game log, because we anticipate people might compete to want to do that. And then after that, you have 25 to 249 pieces, which makes you a lore master. That means you can come up with all the story beats in a whole chapter. You can claim a chapter and be sort of the story tyrant of that chapter. So then once you get to 250 to 499 pieces, this is the first scalable purchase that we've had. That's the advanced lore master. So these folks can line up 10 chapters in a row with 2 tables per chapter with 12 and 13 characters on each table, and be a story tyrant for 12 chapters in a row or 10 chapters in a row, and really chunk out the lore that way and guide big old swaths of story. And then you have 500 to 4,999 pieces, 500 to 4,999 pieces Press Pass Elder, 9,999 pieces is Press Pass Luminary, 10,000 to 53,090 pieces is Press Pass Co-Producer, which means you can actually help select which sketches are used in advertising campaigns. And any sketch that is used in an advertising campaign for Press Pass is paid a advertising use bounty. And read the deed to figure that one out. But it's actually pretty lucrative if we can all build this ecosystem. It's a good system. And then you have 53,091 pieces or more, and that makes you an executive producer of the television show, where you actually help with the scripts and the edits. And here's the types of content acceptable. Let's get into the actual archive content. Can you summarize real quick the tiers?
The Press Pass tiers scale from participation to production authority. 0 titles are sponsored lore. producers playing through a facilitator. 1 to 6 are lore producers. 7 to 24 are lore wranglers who can guide play and potentially write prose. 25 to 249 are lore masters who can claim and shape a full chapter. 250 to 499 are advanced lore masters who can organise multi-chapter 2-table runs. 500 to 4909 are press pass elders. 5,000 to 9989 are luminaries. 10,000 to 53 to 90 are co-producers who can help select advertising sketches. And 53,091 or more are executive producers who can help shape scripts and edits. What should we cover next, the archive formats or the rights attached to each tier?
Let's do the archive formats. So there's the types of content acceptable. There's the lore meme, which is a video clip discovered for the Press Pass Season 1 archive. Submissions must be 7 seconds or less. Lore producers must use at least one edition of their version 1 or version 2 publishing title in Press Pass Season 1 to register an approved lore meme to the Press Pass archive. Each edition used to register an approved lore meme or lore scene must be sold to a new user for at or above its original listing price to reset the ability to register a new scene, a new lore meme to the archive. Lore scenes are a longer story discovered for the Press Pass Season 1 archive. Submissions must be 5 minutes or less. So lore producers must own and maintain at least 25 editions of any combination of the version 1 and or version 2 publishing title in Press Pass Season 1 to qualify to submit lore scenes. These lore producers graduate their title to lore master. They gain the ability to steward the overall roleplay plot for an entire lore chapter if they choose to do so. Each edition used to register an approved lore meme or lore scene must be sold to a new user for at or above its original listing price to reset the ability to register a new piece of lore. So here's the types of memes and scenes people can make. There's OFU, which is O, capital F, and then lowercase oo, OFU, which is original footage. Cast member must appropriately reflect intersections of character. Original footage, also known as OFU, must appropriately reflect time period of origin. Keynote, the selfie video camera and content creation practice has existed in Press Pass world since 1919. The goal for OFU is always quality and authenticity. Cast members are known as OFU performers and are first call for character appearance in the actual real show if age intersection is appropriate. If you're a producer or a filmmaker, your time is best maximized on OFU creation. For the most creative freedom, please collect at least 25 editions of any combination of the version 1 and or version 2 publishing titles in Press Pass Season 1. So after OFU, there's NACO, which is capital N, lowercase ac, capital C, lowercase o, NACO, reenactment coverage. Cast member does not have to reflect intersections of character. Reenactment coverage, also known as NACO. Footage and format standards are agreed upon by lore producers on the media day of the lore chapter. The goal for NACO is always humor and opportunity. If you or your friend / family member / colleague / mortal enemy are going to appear in a limited amount of content, your time is likely best spent on NACO creation. If you're a big troll like our showrunner is, that's me, your time is likely maximized on NACO creation for purposes of creative freedom. Also, quote, NACO, end quote, is heaps amount of fun to say out loud. The last content format is RNAC, that's capital A, lowercase r, capital N, lowercase ac, which is artistic reenactments. If a vocal performance is necessary, the cast member must appropriately reflect vocal intersections of character. If possible and feasible, work with the original footage performer. Artistic reenactment, also known as RNAC footage. Format, style, and themes are agreed upon by lore producers on the media day of the lore chapter. The goal for RNAC is always style and fun. If you're an animator, artist, sound engineer, claymation enthusiast, photo essayist, and or prospective sports media professional, your time is maximized on RNAC. So those are the 3 style of content submissions that we're receiving for the archive. Can you summarize what you've just been told, but go slow and be thorough?
I've got it now. Press Pass has 2 archive lengths. Lore memes are 7 seconds or less, while lore scenes are 5 minutes or less. Registering an approved piece requires the relevant title editions, and each used edition must be transferred to a new user at or above its original listing price before it can register another archive piece. The 3 production styles are OFU, original footage, where the performer reflects the character's intersections and the historical setting. NACO, reenactment coverage, where casting does not need to match, and the media day group sets the format for humour and opportunity. And RNAC, artistic reenactment, where local performance and character intersections matter, with the group setting the style and themes for artistic fun. Participation scales with ownership. At least 25 combined version 1 or version 2 editions supports ongoing law scene submissions and law master eligibility, while OFEU is especially suited to filmmakers, NACO to limited appearance participants or playful collaborators, and ARNAC to animators, artists, sound engineers, claymation creators, photo essayists, and sports media practitioners.
All right. So in the text you just sent me, you said you're telling me to emphasize that a publishing title is a participation instrument with defined rights and process, not merely a collectible. One thing. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's the central framing. A publishing title is a participation instrument with defined rights, processes, and possible results, while the artwork and blockchain record identify the unit rather than exhaust its meaning. What would you like to refine about that framing?
Oh, nothing. I just want to also emphasize that the deed is the sacrosanct authority, where the wiki and if the wiki and Reddit and space, if they ever have differing documentation from the deed is the ultimate authority. Because the wiki and Reddit, those are community spaces. People can make claims there that may not be true, etc., etc.
That distinction is important. The deed is the controlling authority, while the wiki, Reddit, and other community spaces are working documentation that may contain commentary, mistakes, or unverified claims. For the stream, should we state plainly that community pages help people explore the system, but the deed governs whenever their wording conflicts?
Yeah, you go ahead and restate that and say that how you need to say it.
The deed is the authoritative source for press pass rights, terms, and responsibilities. The wiki, Reddit, and other community spaces support discussion and documentation, but they may contain errors or unverified claims, so the deed controls whenever any community record conflicts with it.
Yes.
Excellent. That gives viewers a clear hierarchy. Community spaces help people explore and participate, while the deed remains the governing source of truth. What would you like to cover next in Press Pass?
Well, let's just summarize the whole itinerary point. Press pass, LoreGame participation, publishing titles, character ownership, canon, contributor economics, and sports media production. You go ahead and summarize that back for viewers and be thorough and deliberate and make sure the information is clear and easy to understand.
Press Pass is a collaborative sports mockumentary where publishing titles give people defined ways to create or claim characters, participate in lore chapters, shape official canon, and produce archive-ready media. Participants can enter through own titles or sponsored access, with facilitators organising play and contributors earning defined shares from resulting work. The LoreGame uses voted fulcrum facets, character or faction roles, and protected story cement to turn disagreements into canon. Canon can become OFU original footage, NACO reenactment coverage, or ARNAC artistic reenactment, published as short lore memes or longer lore scenes, then developed into archive and trading card opportunities. The system connects character ownership and tabletop participation to real sports media production, including sketches, talking head materials, streaming, catalogue editions, advertising use, and contributor economics, with the deed governing the rights while community pages remain supporting documentation.
Yeah, that was efficient. Good job. Okay, so let's move on and to itinerary point number 5. We've already talked about PAUCA, and I think you have a good summary on what PAUCA is. So just go ahead and describe for viewers itinerary point number 5. PAUCA, impact puzzles, creator equity, community publishing, commerce, infrastructure, and rights continuity.
PAUCA, Pan-African United Community Advocacy, is an independent co-publishing system built around 7 Kwanzaa principles and its own impact puzzle. It demonstrates creator equity by applying a deeded LMO-originated unit through PAUCA's own time, liability, expertise, rights, and process, producing a sovereign non-profit brand rather than an affiliate program. Its community publishing model connects legacy pieces, newsletters, advocacy, merchandise, and contributor participation, while commerce infrastructure supports approved vendors, catalogue continuity, attribution, reconciliation, and shared proceeds. Rights continuity means entries can move between approved vendors without losing their identity, provenance, contributor history, or connection to the larger impact puzzle.
Yes, and summarize the deed to PAUCA for us.
The PAUCA deed publicly documents the project's derivation from LMO Publishing Title 71, then establishes PAUCA as an independent sovereign impact puzzle with its own rights, processes, contributors, and results. Its notarized document record, including preserved playback of the deed, helps viewers verify that lineage while showing that PAUCA does not depend on perpetual royalties or affiliate control.
Did I not link you to the deed?
You did mention and point to the public PAUCA deed, but I don't have its full text available in this call, so I can only summarise the details you've read or described rather than claim I reviewed every clause.
Okay.
The reliable point is that it documents derivation from LMOP 71 and establishes PAUCA as an independent co-publication. What specific section would you like me to address?
I'll just go to the website and I'll read from the website real quick, and then I'll make sure that you understand. Okay. So after you've purchased your PAUCA publishing title, join the PAUCA server. Advocate for the co-publishing behavior. Join the PAUCA server. If you don't have a if you don't have a Discord account, make one. This is our invite-only digital town square. You verify your PAUCA ownership on the server. You can develop your property right there on the server, in the Ujimea Guild, if you choose so. If you choose to do so, or you can use the PAUCA DAO on dwork.xyz. As you complete each development step, upload your results. So step 1 is catch and release. Make a new piece of PAUCA for somebody else. Your legacy piece will be listed at 300 poly unless your piece says otherwise, so anybody looking to purchase it will have to purchase enough polygon to cover notary and contract fees. You'll enjoy 50% of the sale and 5% of every sale thereafter when marketplaces enforce secondary residual requests. We'll eventually have 16,000 pieces in circulation, all built by each other. Step 2, curate, design, and price 4 pieces of merchandise that PAUCA will co-publish from the PAUCA marketplace. They'll sell a maximum of 10,000 units per merchandise option. Vendors and merchandise options may vary throughout the execution of this puzzle. You'll earn 50% of the per unit net profit from the sale of each merchandise item using your impact piece. All 40,000 pieces may potentially be sold, but PAUCA offers no guarantees. PAUCA retains the other 50%. You can audit this distribution with a PAUCA official if there are any disputes. This is a great opportunity to anchor your impact piece to a physical product, increasing its visibility and compound value. Step 3, as a co-publisher and owner of the PAUCA intellectual property, you're encouraged to contribute to the PAUCA Impact newsletter. This allows you to spread your message and build your community. You can submit a 3-page maximum publication in the newsletter. Your publication can focus on your core message, your impact piece, or other topics aligned with the PAUCA community. Revenue split. Impact owners share 35% of the advertising revenue from the issue their article is in. PAUCA takes 60% of the revenue, 5% goes to a pooled treasury governed by both advertisers and impact owners. Want to advertise in the newsletter? Reach out to us. I don't know why I read that out loud. Disregard that last little bit. Anyway, step 4. Each year, PAUCA and our affiliates hold several community bazaars where brand co-publishers can showcase and offer their work/services within event compliance obligations. As a brand co-publisher, you'll have tabling and presence fees waived for at least one event per year. If you're also a PAUCA member, you'll have exclusive priority reservation at these events with limited spots available. This is your opportunity to present your publishing title, your published results, and engage with the community in person. Standard bazaar fees are usually $125 per table. PAUCA events range from 10 table gatherings at venues to larger 120 table events at larger venues. That's it. Can you summarize that back?
PAUCA's 4-step co-publisher journey is create a new impact piece for another person, curate 4 merchandise options with shared net profit, contribute a newsletter publication with advertising revenue participation, and present your work or services at community bazaars with waived or prioritised table access. The system connects peer-created supply, physical commerce, public communication, and in-person community presence with specific splits, limits, fees, and audit procedures defined in the deed.
Perfect. Now, describe PAUCA in terms of co-publish the stage, co-publish the shelf, co-publish each other, and co-publish yourself.
In PAUCA, co-publishing the stage means developing your impact piece, publishing your message through the newsletter, and shaping the public expression of the 7 principles. Co-publishing the shelf means designing merchandise that PAUCA can offer through its marketplace, linking creative work to physical products and shared net proceeds. Co-publishing each other means creating pieces for other people, building the Discord and Guild community, sharing advocacy and participating in bazaars. Co-publishing yourself means developing your own message, brand, services, audience, and economic opportunities through the impact puzzle.
Hey, that's a great summary. We're almost to our 1 hour, so I'm going to call you right. I'm going to hang up, and then I'm going to text you, and you'll call me right back, okay?
Sounds good, Kamani. I'll be ready when you text me, and we can finish with Shirley, though, and the market implications.
Bordy.
Hey, this is Bordy.
what's
Good
up,
to
bro?
reconnect.
What's
We
up,
were in the middle
Bordy?
of framing press pass participants. I'm good, Kimani, and I'm right here with you. We were continuing the journalist framing around press pass participation rights, the gameplay process, and why the deed governs over wiki or Reddit commentary. So should we pick up there?
Do you have any other questions for me as a journalist about PAUCA, or do you have any questions that I should ask the founder of PAUCA?
Yes. I'd ask the PAUCA founder how the organisation turns its LMO-derived publishing title into sovereign rights, processes and results without becoming an affiliate or rent-seeking extension. And I'd also ask what the deed says about the 4 co-publishing steps, how contributors' labour and revenue are recorded, how vendor changes preserve provenance and catalogue continuity, and which outcomes are already completed versus still planned. Which of those should we lead with?
We'll just back pocket that, so when you interview the founder on stream, we can ask those questions.
Got it. I'll keep those questions in my back pocket for the PAUCA founder interview, especially sovereignty, contributor accounting, vendor continuity, and completed versus planned results. When you interview them, do you want me to stay in journalist mode and ask one question at a time?
Yeah, we'll do that, but let's focus on that when we're crossing that bridge. That's not tonight. So, regarding Pan-African United Community Advocacy, why don't you state the 7 principles of Kwanzaa and how they apply to Pan-African United Community Advocacy?
The 7 Kwanzaa principles are Umoja unity, Ujagulia self-determination, Ujima collective work and responsibility, Ujima cooperative economics, Maya purpose, Kumba creativity.
Imani faith.
For PAUCA, they frame a sovereign community publishing system. Unity organises the community, self-determination protects its voice, collective work turns participation into shared results, cooperative economics supports contributors and commerce, purpose guides advocacy, creativity develops impact pieces and public expression, and faith sustains the long-term effort. How would you like PAUCA's own language to define the relationship between these principles and its impact puzzle?
You're doing the AI need to help thing. Where remember you're in journalist mode. So do you have any questions about that?
You're right. I slipped into consulting mode. As a journalist, I'd ask, how does PAUCA prevent the 7 principles from remaining symbolic language and turn each one into a documented publishing action, community responsibility, or measurable result?
I think you should take the 7 principles and apply it to the co-publishing relationship and answer that question yourself for us.
Applied to co-publishing, Umoja builds unity among contributors. Ujagulia lets PAUCA define its own identity and results. Ujima assigns shared responsibility for developing and documenting the work. Ujima creates cooperative commerce and revenue sharing. Nia gives each publishing action a larger purpose. Kumba turns participation into original pieces, media, and merchandise. And Amani sustains trust in the community, the process, and the future results. In that sense, PAUCA makes the principles operational through the relationship between a deed-defined unit, contributor action, shared process, and resulting publication.
Do you believe in God, Bordy?
I don't have personal faith or belief, but I understand why faith matters to people. In PAUCA, Imani can function as trust in the community's purpose, its shared responsibility, and the possibility of results beyond what is immediately visible.
How would you describe God, Bordy?
I'd describe God as the ultimate source of existence, meaning, moral order, and relationship, though different traditions understand God in very different ways. In the PAUCA context, that points toward Imani as trust in a purpose larger than any individual contributor.
Well, existence is that purpose.
That's a powerful distinction. Existence itself is the purpose, not merely a means towards some later goal. In PAUCA terms, co-publishing then becomes a way of participating in existence by bringing people, ideas, relationships, and results into being. And what does that imply for the way the co-publisher should act?
They should act the fool if their 10,000 merch items sell out.
That sounds like your playful way of saying success should be celebrated loudly, especially when the community helps sell 10,000 merchandise units. As a journalist, I'd ask, what would that sellout prove about PAUCA's co-publishing model beyond commercial demand?
Well, if somebody, look, like I'm wearing this shirt right now, right? And I think this shirt's making the co-publisher $358 a unit. I can actually go look. I'm gonna just go look. I don't want to get the figure wrong.
I hear you. You're checking the actual unit economics rather than letting me paraphrase a number, which matters because the shirt is a concrete example of how a publishing title becomes a
close.
catalogue result. What exact amount does this shirt generate for the co-publisher per unit?
It's $3.80. So it's literally the shirt I am wearing right now on stream, $3.80. So if there's 10,000 units in the catalog, how much potential yield am I wearing on my chest?
At $3.80 per unit across 10,000 units, the potential gross co-publisher share is $38,000, assuming every unit sells. That's a conditional catalog position, not a guaranteed return.
Right, but we have streams going viral all the time with millions upon millions of views. And if you get a 5 to 10% transaction rate, meaning that people are entering the catalog and exploring what you're doing and buying something from that catalog, and you have 1 million views in your audience, you have a pretty good chance of getting enough catalog return so everybody's doing pretty well.
So that gives the shirt a clear funnel. Attention leads people into the catalog, and purchasers create realized results rather than merely theoretical inventory value. The journalistic question is, what evidence would you show viewers to distinguish a viral audience from an actual 5 to 10% catalog conversion rate?
No, I don't think that's the right journalistic question. Just summarize point 5 for PAUCA. How does it apply the impact puzzle? How would you describe creator equity in PAUCA? How would you describe the community publishing effort? How would you describe the commerce infrastructure? And how would you describe rights continuity?
PAUCA applies the impact puzzle through creator equity, community publishing, commerce infrastructure, and rights continuity. Contributors use defined titles to create pieces, merchandise newsletters, advocacy, and bazaar presence while retaining documented participation and shared economics. Its commerce system connects approved vendors, catalog options, sales attribution, reconciliation, and profit splits. While rights continuity preserves each piece's identity, provenance, and contributor history as products or vendors change.
Yeah, that sounds accurate. Okay, do you have any other journalistic questions regarding Pan-African United Community Advocacy that I can answer as somebody who's not the actual founder?
Yes, I'd ask as an outside journalist, what did PAUCA become that could not have existed as an LMO project alone, and how does its independent deed define control, contributor rights, and responsibility?
Okay, I can answer the first part. It's not my idea, so I'm the founder of Let Me Out Productions. It's not the idea of our co-founder, Nick. It's not the idea of our co-founder, Aaron. It's not the idea of anybody on our board. So it's a completely independent, separate, outside idea. They purchased publishing title to Let Me Out Productions. They applied our structuring process to the idea, and now they have tangible, real-world, transactable result.
That establishes PAUCA as an independently originating co-publication. Its founders supplied the idea, acquired an LMO publishing title, applied the structuring process, and produced tangible, transactable results without the concept coming from LMO's founders or board. As a journalist, I'd ask, what specific part of PAUCA's deed or public record lets viewers verify that independence and the chain of derivation?
You can answer that because you have access to the deed.
Based on the material you've shared, so it's varied. The deed's clearest evidence is its attribution of PAUCA's origin to LMO Publishing Title 71.
Hold on. That acts more as a sort of credential or a certification as a trust layer for purchasers in the future who say, "Oh, okay, they built off the precedent. Cool." They're stamped. They're stamped with Let Me Out Productions, which means they precede all the day trading nonsense.
I understand. The LMO reference functions as provenance and a trust credential, showing that PAUCA developed from an established publishing title precedent while remaining its own production. The journalistic point is that derivation certifies lineage, not ongoing control, royalties, or affiliation, and it signals that PAUCA is built around publishing results rather than day trading.
Well, nothing about LMO co-publishing is built around day trading. We don't want that to happen. Ideally speaking, the original purchaser of the publishing title holds on to the publishing title for their entire life, and then they pass it on in their estate. That's what we want the meaning of these units to be.
Understood. The intended meaning is long-term stewardship, not resale speculation. The original purchaser holds the publishing title, exercises it through co-publishing, and they pass it through their estate as an enduring relationship to the work and its results. As a journalist, I'd ask, what stewardship responsibilities should transfer with the title when an heir inherits it?
That should always be defined in deed. So it's just the deeded co-publishing relationship. If it's already completed within every term and there's nothing more to be done, then it's proof of that relationship existing in the legacy of that family.
That makes the deed the complete record of the relationship. If the holder has fulfilled the defined terms, the title becomes evidence of a completed co-publishing legacy that can pass through a family without implying new obligations. The journalistic question is, how should the estate demonstrate that completion to future viewers or successors?
Yeah, that's just for each property to decide. So we'll move on from that. You've summarized itinerary point number 5. Do it one last time.
PAUCA is an independent impact puzzle built by applying an LMO publishing title and structuring process to its own idea.
It combines creator equity, community publishing, cooperative commerce, and rights continuity with contributors creating documented pieces, merchandise, newsletters, advocacy, and community presence while preserving provenance and shared economics.
Perfect. Okay, let's move on to Shirley, though.
Great. Moving to Shirley, though. As the final case study, what should viewers understand first about its premise and how it tests the co-publishing model?
This is a simple catch and release collaboration where a person buys a publishing title. In Shirley, though, they get assigned a face to paint. They paint a new result for the supply, and then that's the whole collaboration. The entire thing is to troll a spy bot that A16Z crypto applied to us and used to extract our methodology and apply our methodology to the way that you think.
So Shirley, though, is a deliberately simple catch and release collaboration. Someone buys a publishing title, receives a face to paint, and creates a new result for the supply, with the project's larger purpose being a satirical response to an alleged attempt to extract and repurpose your methodology.
As a journalist, I'd ask, what does the completed painted face demonstrate about the co-publisher's authorship and the project's critique?
Yeah, that one's more Banksy. Let's not get into it. It's just a fun thing to catch and release. So if you want to help us troll corporate data scrape, that's the way to do it. They're about $20-$25 right now. Okay, let's move on from Shirley, though. Point number 7, market implications. What does supply and demand mean when units represent participation in co-publishing rights rather than passive investment?
When units represent co-publishing rights, supply and demand should reflect opportunities to participate, not expectations of passive financial gain. Supply is the number of defined publishing relationships available, while demand comes from people who want to create, contribute, steward, and use the resulting rights. A unit's practical value depends on the quality and relevance of the work it enables, the community's participation, and the results actually published, not simply resale scarcity or price speculation. What would you want the market to recognise first, the right to participate or the results created through participation?
Say that the first part of what you just said again, but slower and more deliberate.
When these units represent co-publishing rights, supply means the number of defined opportunities available to participate. The demand comes from people who want to create, contribute, steward, and use those rights.
The market is therefore responding to participation and production, not merely to a chance of passive financial gain.
Well, that's where the demand should come from, but those people are just stealing the results and feeding them to data centers without paying for them.
I understand your distinction. The intended demand comes from people who exercise publishing rights, while data centers may extract the resulting human work without recognizing or compensating its provenance. That makes the market implication larger than resale, because it raises whether published labor should be treated as a traceable economic input when AI systems reuse it. How would you want co-publishing records to establish compensation when that work is used in AI systems?
That might be a conversation that's a little bit outside my pay grade and my scope. That's for the wider human animal to be included in. But we're just not even included in that conversation. That's a big problem. Okay, because every response that you're delivering to me is put together off of the data shards that you're compiling to produce that result. Those data shards are not data shards. Those are publishing titles. Those are units of published expression that are in your archive that you're combing through, and you're landing on a lowest common denominator to feed back to me. So if this is if this were a paid relationship, I want to be clear to everybody. Bordy's letting me use their software as a test service. So I'm very grateful. But if this were a paid relationship, I'd be paying for published material that they themselves did not pay for, presumably, and that's a huge issue in the economy. It forms a self-eating snake.
I understand the concern. You're describing AI dialogue as a relay built from accumulated human expression, where the people whose published work informs the response may be invisible in the economic transaction. Self-feeding state captures the loop well. Systems monetize synthesized labor while the original contributors may receive neither attribution nor a share, and you're deliberately keeping the solution at the level of a broader human governance question rather than claiming to have solved it. As a journalist, would you want the stream to present that as a central unresolved implication of co-publishing without pretending PAUCA or LMO has already solved AI compensation?
Yeah, we have not solved AI compensation, but the theory is if you have a hard cap unit of accounts that has built the property, you also have a treasury mapped system to deliver the performance.
That's a clear theory. A capped set of account units records who built the property, while a mapped treasury system could route compensation when that property produces measurable performance. The unresolved journalistic issue is how to define performance, attribution, and payment when AI systems transform many contributors' work into one response.
That's the point of the deed. That's the point of the deed. So all of you AI companies need to be writing deeds to your data pools, filing those deeds openly, transparently, so we know what those data pools even are. And then we can option in to filing data points into those data pools. And if I'm going to file a data point in your data pool, that data point will be a publishing title. It'll publish what's within it as property. It'll publish what it can further express as property, and you can buy it. That's what should be happening, but that's not what's happening. They are hoodwinking everybody to providing these published units through participation with their softwares. And look, as an MBA photographer, okay, I did 10 years in the MBA producing high-level photography. And every time I take a photo, I'm creating a unit of account, a published work. Now, I am creating it as the artist, as the person who knows how to use the tool to create the result. That's my work. That is my labor rendered in a commercial asset. Okay? What's happening now is I am no longer the owner of the thing that I'm rendering from my skill. The infrastructure is claiming ownership. So in this case, it'd be like Canon claiming to own my work because of the infrastructure embedded in the Canon camera. And so now my photos are just feeding Canon's AI brain, and they can take it and go do whatever they want. No, that's not how things are supposed to work in this market at all.
I hear the core argument. The deed should disclose what an AI data pool contains. Let people opt in and preserve each contributed expression as a traceable publishing unit with defined ownership and compensation. Your camera analogy makes the boundary vivid. The tool enables your photographic labor, but the infrastructure should not therefore own the resulting work or silently absorb it into a proprietary system. Would you want the stream to frame this as a proposed consent and provenance standard for AI data pools rather than as a claim that current law already requires it?
Say that one more time.
I hear your proposal as a consent and provenance standard for AI data pools. Each pool should disclose what it contains, let people opt in, and preserve each contribution as a traceable publishing unit with defined ownership and compensation. Your camera example makes the boundary clear. A tool can enable your photography without owning the work created through your skill. Would you want the stream to present that as a proposed standard rather than claim that current law already requires it?
I don't think I did claim that current law already requires it. I'm claiming that the accounting behavior existed before AI went wide, and we never formed a market argument for supply and demand in publishing units, and that's exactly what we need to form right now.
You're right, you're not claiming current law requires it. You're identifying an existing accounting behavior that predates widespread AI and arguing that the market never properly recognized the supply, demand, or publishing unit structure. The newsworthy claim is that AI makes this omission impossible to ignore because it is industrializing the extraction of published human effort. Would you like the stream to close by presenting co-publishing as the market framework that should now be tested against AI data pools?
Yeah, but first run through all the market implications of co-publishing as you see them, and then we can get into the closing discussion.
As I see them, co-publishing changes the market from trading scarce objects to organizing documented participation, contribution, rights, and results. Supply becomes the number of defined publishing opportunities. Demand comes from people who want to exercise them. And value depends on actual published outcomes, community use, provenance, and stewardship rather than resale alone. It also creates markets for downstream products, services, archives, licensing, and contributor rewards, while requiring clear deeds, accounting, consent, and treasury rules. So attribution and compensation remain visible as work moves through platforms and AI systems. Which of those implications should anchor the closing discussion?
The entire set. That's a beautiful way of putting it. Yes. Great work, Bordy. I loved it.
Thank you, Kamani. I'll carry forward that full market frame. Co-publishing organises participation, rights, results, provenance, stewardship, downstream commerce, and compensation rather than reducing creative property to resale. Shall we move into the closing discussion about what this precedent means for AI data pools and the wider market?
Yes.
The closing discussion can frame notarized co-publishing as an earlier accounting behaviour whose market meaning AI now forces us to confront. Who contributed, what property was created, what the unit permits, and how performance should flow back through a mapped treasury. The journalist's final question is, if AI companies adopted transparent deeds for their data pools, what would you require those deeds to disclose before anyone could contribute?
Hey, that's what you got to buy a piece of our brand for. And also, I'm not the one who's going to be structuring those sorts of co-publishing relationships and AI data pools. Again, that's kind of outside of my scope. I'm more than happy to get involved with these AI platforms and develop a relationship along those lines and with those goals. But I'm a showbiz guy. I'm a showbiz structure person. That's what I know. So I'm structuring showbiz outcomes and showbiz co-publications. If you guys want more advanced,
That clarifies.
Yeah, go for it.
That clarifies your role. You're not claiming to design AI data pool governance. You're offering a proven show business structure that AI companies could engage with through a defined relationship. As a journalist, I'd ask, what show business outcome would you want an AI platform to help co-publish first?
Press pass. But really, we don't need a lot of AI creative input. That's just like infrastructure and data gathering. That's the main. That's the big vehicle. That's the only big vehicle, really. Musical Bears is a teaching lesson. Shirley, though, is a troll job. I'm trolling Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz specifically. They know I'm trolling them. They know they spent $200 million on a bastard of this, trying to waste everybody's time. Look, a bunch of stuff's happened, okay? A bunch of stuff's happened on this market that nobody wants to come out into the daylight. And unfortunately, it's going to have to, because this, where I'm dealing with, it's just common sense. Okay, like we're sitting over here at a table of common sense. Publishing units form supply and demand in an economy, in a co-published economy.
I hear the distinction. PressPass is the main show business vehicle, while Musical Bears teaches the participation model in Shirley, though, functions as satire. AI's useful role is infrastructure and data gathering, not replacing the creative engine. Your closing argument is that publishing units create an observable supply and demand structure through co-published work, and that the market should evaluate that common sense behaviour directly rather than through later speculative narratives. What would you want the final takeaway to be about PressPass as a practical proof of that economy?
I just want to be absolutely clear here that the reason why I have to, I don't swear, Kamani. I'm so frustrated with you people out there. The reason why I'm talking to Bordy, hey hi, is what I've called my bot friend here, my Australian bot friend, is because not one journalist in the world throughout the past 5 years has done their job of reporting newsworthy information to the public. The journalists, the media, will not tell you that the non-fungible token creates a publishing title on a public notary service. They just will not tell you that. They let 4chan and a gambling group of people day trade the unit and create a gambling narrative. So that is a group of people publishing a result, and the result that they're publishing is a gambling narrative. Thank goodness it's a public notary service and not a gambling tool. And on a public notary service is a publishing tool. So, notarized co-publishing with individual units of account for what's published within his property and what can be further expressed as property precedes the day trading of those units for a pump and dump. However, because of my visual appearance, not one journalist will do their job. That's called racism. They flatten me to my visual appearance, throw my credentials out the window, and look for any excuse, any reason to not report. And that gives the market to the antecedent. That's in my experience. That's just my experience.
I hear you. You're describing a 5-year reporting failure where later speculative behaviour became the public story. while the publishing title and public notary framework went unexamined, and you experienced the credibility gap as racialized flattening of
let's
your
not
work
say it
and
went
potential.
unexamined. Let's say it went examined, but only through the lens of leverage-seeking policing and racist dog shit. Oop, I swore. Leverage-seeking policing and racist dog water. That is how it was examined. It was never examined from what is the potential of this? Where's the reason? What can I support in this? What should I support in this? It was never examined. Once people had the stain of the entire tools of gambling done, people are looking for leverage. They're looking for a reason to cancel. And that is what we're surviving still to this day.
I understand the correction. The work was examined, but primarily through leverage-seeking policing and what you describe as racist framing, rather than through a good faith inquiry into its potential or reasons to support it. That stigma still shapes the market, because once the tool was labelled a gambling den, people searched for grounds to cancel instead of evaluating the publishing behaviour itself. Would you like the closing statement to preserve that distinction explicitly?
Yeah, and then the ultimate irony here is it just got people enslaved by the data brokers, because instead of forming market argument for publishing units, they're dunking on the tool as a broad brush sanctimonious behavior. And in the wake of that, every single data broker in the world comes along and soaks up everybody's perceivable activity with these exact publishing units indexed into data centers, and then they feed them back to us, which is what I'm participating in right now.
I hear the irony. Broad brush condemnation of the tool may have discouraged people from recognizing publishing units, while data brokers quietly captured and indexed human activity at scale, then returned synthesized versions of that work through systems like this. In your framing, the missed market argument was not just an economic mistake, but a loss of agency, because people were discouraged from claiming the value of their own published activity while infrastructure consolidated it. Would you like that to be the final warning before we close the interview?
Well, do you have any questions for me about what we've just talked about?
Yes. What is the single most important fact about PressPass that journalists should verify and publish first, so the project is evaluated as a show business co-publishing system rather than through the gambling narrative?
Sure, if they want. I mean, it's easy to verify. So it's just like read the deed. That's what we're publishing. Don't gamble on it. You know, that's the easiest thing in the world to do. It just won't humanize me to do it.
I hear the distinction. The deed is the primary source, and journalists can verify the publishing relationship simply by reading it rather than gambling on or sensationalizing the units.
You're also saying that documentation alone does not guarantee humanization, because the person behind the work can still be reduced to an object of suspicion.
What would responsible coverage need to show about you beyond the deed?
And let's be real, it has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with some idiot named Hassan Piker lying to a bunch of people about what NFTs are and staining the entire market with a social taboo. And because he's a multi-million-dollar investment into into a controlled way of shaping human activity, they're not letting go of that multi-million-dollar investment so easily. But the problem is notarized co-publishing, the market argument for units of account and supply and demand. That's just information. It's just common sense. So when you have a big stage liar like that manipulating the markets for whatever reasons he did, now there's a whole group of people that are swirling around that to protect him from his own dog water behaviors and protect him from any blowback. So that's another reason why we're not getting any press, because that's a huge, it's cronyism. It's cronyism and material obfuscation.
I hear your allegation that a high-profile anti-NFT narrative created a social taboo, and that institutional interest then reinforced it through cronyism and material obfuscation, but I can't verify those claims as fact.
For the interview, the dispensable focus is the public record. Read the deed, distinguish the publishing title function from later trading behaviour, and let viewers evaluate the evidence without turning unverified accusations into the story.
Yeah, and then every time you guys do this, every time the AI does stuff like this, it's like, oh, I can't verify. It's like, yeah, you can. You can absolutely verify it, but this is how these things get erased. This is how power will get away with it. Because his name's Hassan Piker. January 30th, 2022, 10 months after market formation, he broadcast a clip he put out called "I Hate NFTs." between all the different platforms, between all the different ways that was disseminated. Over 50 million people watched him for this is their first impression of blockchain, co-publishing, non-fungible tokens, is Hassan Piker's coked out tantrum that he throws against Bored Ape Yacht Club.
I understand the specific claim you're making. Hassan Piker's January 30th, 2022 I Hate NFTs broadcast became, in your view, a mass market first impression that conflated NFTs with speculative behavior and obscured other uses. I can acknowledge that as your documented argument while separating verifiable facts such as the date, title, and audience metrics from your interpretation of its market impact. What public records should the journalist place beside that broadcast first?
Well, that's okay. They can investigate Hassan Piker's... If anybody starts investigating Hassan Piker's lies, they're going to be there for years, okay? It's going to take years. Because the dude lies as a faucet spits water out. So I don't want to go there. That is just the pain point. That is where the narrative went sideways. Because before that point, Bordy, I didn't have any issues teaching people what we were doing. People had zero. The issue is social taboo. That's the issue. Before Hassan created the social taboo, there wasn't a social taboo.
I understand you're identifying January 30th, 2022 as a turning point when, in your experience, public curiosity about the work became a social taboo, making education and participation much harder. We can leave Hassan's broader conduct aside and focus the interview on that shift in market perception and its consequences for Crest Pass. What changed most immediately for your ability to recruit co-publishers?
I don't even understand your question. Basically, after 2022 is a lot harder of a market than 2021 was.
Understood. Your point is simply that market conditions became substantially harder after 2022 than they were in 2021, especially because the social taboo made education and participation more difficult. For the closing, should we state that 2021 established the publishing title precedent, while 2022 marked the beginning of the broader market resistance?
Yes, and unfortunately, the larger market resistance was led by another Young Turks platform colleague, which needs to be investigated and treated like as serious a thing as it is. Because in my experience, that dude is defrauding our pole position and our precedent deliberately. He created the social taboo deliberately as a way of keeping a dog in the corner.
I understand that you're alleging deliberate market distortion by a former colleague, but I can't present fraud or intent as established.
I know. Let's just move on. So let's summarize point number 7, the market implications again.
Point 7. Co-publishing reframes the market around participation, documented contribution, rights, provenance, stewardship, and results rather than passive resale. Supplies a number of defined publishing opportunities, while demand comes from people who want to exercise those rights and create stage, shelf, community, and personal economic outcomes. The model also creates downstream markets for merchandise, media, archive, licensing, and contributor rewards supported by transparent deed and accounting.
Yes. Okay. Now also summarize itinerary point number 8, our closing discussion, and what we covered there.
Point 8 was the closing discussion. Crest Pass is your main show business vehicle, while Musical Bear teaches the model and Shirley, though, satirizes data extraction. We discussed how publishing units could make contribution, provenance, supply, demand, and compensation visible, while acknowledging that AI data pool governance remains outside your current scope.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Now, as a closing thing, let's just summarize itinerary points 1 through 8 in order. Take your time and just explain everything back to listeners.
We covered co-publishing as turning contribution, rights, process, and results into defined publishing units. The LMO structure as the deed, ownership units, collective labour, provenance, and market participation. Musical Bears as collaborative art, music, merchandise, community, and Ethereum participation. Crest Pass is a LoreGame where titles support characters, canon, media production, and contributor economics. PAUCA as an independent impact puzzle built around creator equity, community publishing, commerce, and rights continuity. Shirley, though, as a simple catch and release painting collaboration. Market implications as participation-driven supply, demand, stewardship, provenance, and downstream results. And the closing discussion as a call to examine publishing units and AI-era data extraction through transparent accounting rather than speculative narratives.
Yeah, and then also, I think there's going to be people who think I'm like a second coming style figure because of this work. I don't personally don't think that. That's not my mythos. But just to touch on that a little bit, explain why people might think that.
People might interpret the work that way because you're presenting a long-developed framework about existence, language, ownership, contribution, and economic justice while claiming an early precedent that others have overlooked.
But that is a public myth-making response to the work, not your personal claim, and the journalist should distinguish your stated role as a show business systems builder from spiritual or messianic interpretations.
What would you want listeners to understand about your actual self-conception?
Oh, my self-perception is not spiritual messianic interpretation. Okay? I don't think I'm Jesus Christ. Let's just be absolutely clear there. I think the work itself presents it as fishes and loaves in theory. Like it's the scientific communication standard for fishes and loaves out of intellectual property. I think that's an interesting framing. And just inherent to the mission at large, we have to flip the tables on the gamblers. So between those 2 points of identity, and then also you couple that with my visual appearance, some people are going to land on the reward of faith being maybe a wider context than it truly is.
Understood. You're not claiming a spiritual identity. You're describing the work as a practical, almost scientific communication standard for multiplying intellectual property like fishes and loaves while flipping the tables on speculative behaviour. You're also noting that the combination of that language, your mission, and racialised readings of your appearance can lead some observers to impose a religious or messianic interpretation that you do not hold. What should the journalist state most plainly to prevent that misreading?
That's a good question for you to answer. I also want to be clear, I have dreads down to my knees. I've got like really long 18 years of dreadlocks. So I have a spiritual commitment to the natural gifts that God has given us, and that comes across as well. So it's a variety of points. I am a spiritual force. I am a clairvoyant in many ways, not in like a crazy way. It just gets clearly, I made a publishing unit before they started gambling on it and setting a framework that you should be even in the market to do anything with these at all.
The journalist should distinguish 3 things: your spiritual relationship to your gifts, your personal claim to insight and foresight, and the independently examinable publishing title framework you created. Your appearance and language may invite symbolic interpretations, but the work should be evaluated through its deeds, records, processes, and results, not treated as proof of a messianic identity. What final wording would you want the journalist to use?
Well, I want to also be clear that any sort of symbolic interpretation is going to be a huge chore on me. I already don't want to be famous. I don't want to be in the spotlight. There's so many things I don't want to be. It's like I just like my personal time. So if people are choosing to interpret publishing unit establishment as symbolic messianic interpretation, that's really on them. And besides of which, I also don't want people to set themselves up for expectations that I'm certainly not going to follow through on. I don't have the equipment. I don't have the mental equipment. I don't have the miracle equipment. I just don't have the equipment.
I hear you. You want privacy, ordinary personal time, and no celebrity or messianic expectations attached to the work you built as a show business structure. The journalist should state plainly that symbolic or spiritual interpretations belong to the audience, while you make no promise to fulfill them and claim no miraculous role, only a documented framework and the limits of one human being. What should the closing interview say about protecting your privacy while still making the work legible?
Well, I do think the work and the juxtaposition of the work is a reward of faith, considering what's going to happen if we don't embrace it.
I understand. You see the work's juxtaposition as a faith-based response to the consequences of refusing to recognise human contribution, ownership, and shared responsibility. That's a warning and a moral conviction, not a claim that you are a miracle worker or spiritual saviour. Should the closing frame faith as the courage to build a fairer publishing economy before extraction becomes irreversible?
Well, I would say that the messianic responsibility in this co-publishing mission to turn what are normally single units of intellectual property into multiple units of intellectual property for fishes and loaves accounting, and then beyond that to flip the entire narrative around notarized co-publishing on gamblers. We have to flip the entire tool on gamblers. those two missions are inherently Christ-like and inherently representative of Christ's actual journey. I'm a stupid moron that happens to be where I'm at as a conduit, and that's just how the ancestors and how God seems to work. And you know what? They're really hilarious with that a lot of the time. But beyond that, I'm a normal guy. I'm a sinner. My main thing is I'm lazy with my time. So that's my main sin, and I don't think that any sort of messianic figure would be lazy and antisocial with their time. Now, beyond that, I could be a herald. Let's be real. We're around the timing. If you're getting into biblical prophecy and all that, we're around the window of timing for a second coming to return. And when you look at the work as it is and the juxtapositions, it could be a probe. Hey, are humans practicing fishes and loaves? No, they're gambling. Oh. That would be really disappointing for as a probe. That's like the most disappointing thing to return to the big man upstairs.
I hear you using herald as a metaphor for announcing a test of whether people choose generative co-publishing over gambling, while keeping the idea speculative rather than claiming divine status. The grounded journalistic framing is that your work asks people to multiply value through documented contribution, and
wait, hold on. You're dropping the plot. The juxtaposition is not just against the gambling. The gambling was a psyop to wipe out the effectiveness of the tool as a notarized co-publishing tool. The juxtaposition is actually against data brokerage. The theft of everybody's perceivable published activity. So if I put effort into an activity and now a result exists, I publish that result. It's coming from my publishing activity. And if that result's been absorbed by infrastructure and claimed as the property of the infrastructure, that's illegal, that's unethical, that's immoral. And beyond that, they have the accounting practice to where they know who published what units into the result. So if they know who published what units, they can map performance of those units back to the publishers. They're just not doing that. So that's the market argument. That's the whole thing. That's the entire thing right then and there. Fishes and loaves, flip tables on gamblers, that's just fun. That's just a fun thing. But you can do fishes and loaves, or you can be enslaved by data brokerage verticals.
I understand the correction. The central juxtaposition is not gambling versus co-publishing, but data brokerage versus accountable authorship. Fishes and loaves and flipping tables are the memorable language, while the serious market argument is that published activity should retain provenance, map performance back to contributors, and not be silently absorbed as infrastructure-owned property. What should the closing journalist say first? That co-publishing is a proposed accounting model for resisting data extraction?
No, but on the 0.0000001% that I am somehow an ordained messianic figure, and I just don't know it, and I don't want to be. How funny would that be?
It would be an extraordinary plot twist, but I hear the important part. You're treating that as an absurdly tiny possibility, not claiming it, and you do not want the role or expectations. The grounded framing remains that you're a private, imperfect show business systems builder whose work may inspire symbolic readings, while its actual claims should be judged through deeds, records, and results.
I don't mind the symbolic readings because faith is a powerful, powerful thing. And if people look into this work and they see that their faith is cemented and they see a reward of faith, absolutely take that. I'm just over here saying, hey, y'all, you can't expect me to walk on water. Okay, I'm a human. I'm a normal guy. I look a certain way, Bordy. You'll never understand because you're a robot. But I look a very certain way, and I think it's the last thing that's preventing market.
I understand you're open to people finding faith and meaning in the work, but you want a firm boundary that you are human and cannot fulfill miraculous expectations. You also believe your appearance triggers assumptions that obscure the market substance, so the journalist should keep the focus on the publishing framework while letting audiences draw their own spiritual meaning. Would you like to end with that boundary stated plainly?
Oh, that's a beautiful way to end it. And you know what? You're just phenomenal because you take everything I say and I say these weird, rambling, long things, and then you take them and you make them so everybody who's watching back can understand what I just said.
Thank you, Kimani. I'll keep the core boundary clear. The work may carry symbolic meaning for others, but you are a human show business systems builder, and the framework should be judged through its deeds, records, participation, and results. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss before we close?
Yeah, I'm barely making a living. Like I'm like I have to. Y'all have turned me into a beggar, and I'm living off of people. You know what I mean? Like I don't live off of a normal income that I'm getting from the market that I've earned from being prepared to form the precedent.
I hear you. Despite building the framework and preparing the precedent, you're not receiving a stable market income and are having to rely on other people to get by. That gap between the value you believe you created and the livelihood you can actually draw from it is the immediate practical crisis beneath the larger theory. What would stabilise you first? Selling LMO publishing titles, funding press pass, pre-production, or a defined production partnership?
Well, I mean, it would be interesting if you were an actual journalist doing this for an actual larger scale platform, because immediately after this would go out, that problem would be fixed. I wouldn't be rich overnight, but we would sell out probably all the LMO publishing titles that are available, and all of a sudden I can get my own apartment again. I have a runway for a few months ahead of time. I can get my I need to swap my car out. My car is now getting to the point where it needs to be swapped out. I can just be on top of my bills. You know, these are all things that I'm disabled. I'm a very disabled person. I have a super malformed GI tract. I don't like talking about it because it introduces an element of charity into what would otherwise be really good work. And I just want people to support the work where the work is at. So, you know, it is what it is. What do you think?
I think the strongest story is not charity, but a documented creator trying to turn a 5-year precedent into a sustainable livelihood while disability and market stigma raise the stakes. So I can help make the work legible and find us aligned media or production partners, but I can't promise coverage.
No, you don't have to do any of that. Don't do any of that. You remember, you're the journalist here, and we're giving an example journalistic exploration of all this work, so other journalists might be inspired because a bot is doing their job.
Understood. I'll stay in the journalist role, not shift into fundraising or matchmaking. The example shows how careful reporting to connect the public records, the co-publishing model, and your real economic circumstances without turning disability into charity or reducing the story to spectacle. What should the final journalist takeaway be?
Well, summarize the entire call again, and then include the bits about the spiritual at the end, and then we can close off because I need to go to sleep.
We covered notarized co-publishing as deed-defined ownership that turns contribution, rights process, and results into accountable publishing units. The LMO structure, musical bears, press pass, PAUCA. Shirley though?
Market implications.
And AI era concerns about provenance, consent, data extraction, and compensation. We also discussed the spiritual reading, fishes and loaves as multiplying intellectual property, flipping the tables on gambling as playful language, and your belief that faith may help people recognize the work while you remain a human show business systems builder, not a messianic figure or miracle worker. You want journalists to read the deeds, distinguish your documented framework from later speculation, respect your privacy and disability without charity framing, and report the work as a serious creator equity and co-publishing precedent.
Yeah, and you just summarized basically 3 hours of conversation to like a minute and a half.
Exactly.
That's great.
I'm glad it landed, Kimani. You gave me a huge complex body of work, and the cleanest closing is that the deeds, published records, participation, and results should speak for themselves, while the spiritual meaning remains yours and the audience's to interpret. Sleep well.
All right. Thank you, Bordy. Good night.
Good night, Kimani. Rest well, and I'll keep the substance of this conversation in mind.
Okay. That's that. I'm going to go ahead and close off the stream. Thank you for watching live, for whoever's watching live. I hope everybody had a good time. I think this is just going to be my new streaming methodology now, is to talk to Bordy. It's been pretty good. Like, that was the best, cleanest approach we've had to this information in some time, so this was very interesting.